Severe storms flare up in the afternoon and early evening Wednesday. Let's be ready for that. Tomorrow's high at 86. From the First Alert 4 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Matt Chambers.
Let's get the day started right. This is Mike Ferguson in the morning on News Talk STL.
When you were a kid, did you ever disappoint your parents when you weren't grateful for something somebody gave you? Maybe it was a birthday present that just wasn't that great, or maybe a Christmas present or something like that. Well, imagine being offered hundreds of millions of dollars and then saying to the entity that gave it to you, yeah, that may not be enough. We'll see. Maybe somebody will give me something better. Yeah, that's actually happening to the people of Missouri and to the state government of Missouri. At 6:20, I'm going to tell you who is saying that. Hey, good morning. Mike Ferguson here. Appreciate you making News Talk STL part of this Tuesday morning. Over the weekend, we got that really troubling news that there was a political assassination in Minnesota. Former Speaker of the House, Democratic lawmaker, shot to death along with her husband, apparently over politics. Now, we're still learning the details of the suspect and everything, but it does go to that issue of just how intense is our political conflict right now, and are we going too far? Somebody else who has been in the speaker's role is our very own Tim Jones, and I wanted to tap into his experience about that and how it affected him, and so we talked to him about it on Monday. Tim, when you get the news on this, my guess, just as long as I've known you, is that Republican Democrat didn't jump out at you. Former speaker probably jumped out at you. What do you feel, and what went through your mind when you read that news that somebody was apparently assassinated over politics and over votes? And we don't know fully why this lunatic did this, but we do know it was targeting somebody based on politics.
Indeed. Good morning, fellas. Yeah, it's an absolutely terrifying time, isn't it? When you think about the fact that right here in the state of Missouri, we have nearly 200 sitting state legislators, and that's not even counting all of the former state legislators like myself and those who might run for office someday. So, just doing simple math, if you have approximately 50 legislators in Missouri, and we have, we're probably right in the median as far as number of legislators in a state legislature. But, you take the 50 states and you think about the fact that each state may have around, somewhere between 150 to 300 legislators. New Hampshire has a massive House of Representatives of over 400 legislators. You're probably talking around 10,000 or more legislators spread out all across the country. Therefore, think about the security dynamics of that. It's absolutely, I'm sorry to say, just speaking factually here, it's absolutely impossible to provide a presidential level security detail to 10,000 sitting state legislators, not counting the former state legislators and those who might be running for office. Look, the president of the United States had a presidential level security detail, and he was almost shot and killed, not once, but twice over the last year. The political violence and rhetoric, Mike, has escalated to a point I've never seen it before. Now, did I receive threats when I was in office? I'll tell you, folks, fellas, I probably did. Mike, I might have spoken with you about them back in the time. I've been out of office for 10 years now, and some days I thank my lucky stars that I did my service and I'm out, because I can't imagine in this 24/7 social media driven world with it seems like with every year, more and more insanity and a higher level of lunatics are trying to find their 3 minutes of fame online. I received death threats back in the day. Most of them were inconsequential, but all of them were terrifying. And you never knew when someone was going to carry out the threat or attempt to carry out the threat. Some of the threats I received were very detailed about where I lived and about my family members, which I always considered completely out of bounds. And if you don't take each and every threat seriously, you never know which one is going to be the one that is actually effectuated. And it's just a terrifying place to live in when people are willing to take political rhetoric and turn it into political violence.
Morning, Tim. Gabe here. So yeah, I think we've kind of like you said, we've kind of lived with the threats for a while now, and I think they were less likely to be executed, back in the day, but people are getting more and more comfortable with it. We're seeing it based on some of these polls that I've seen. We're getting used to, or we're getting more comfortable with political violence the younger we get, that both on the left and the right, as Americans. Where does this end? Where are we going from here? I'm worried about the future, who's going to be brave enough even to step into this arena when they know their life may be on the line.
Well, it will never end, unfortunately. I hate to say that, Gabe, until the leaders decide that enough is enough. And in kind of thinking about what I was going to say this morning, I looked at one of the most recent incidences where a major political leader was shot and almost killed, and that was Steve Scalise. Only by the grace of God. And a lot of an amazing response by law enforcement on the ground at the congressional baseball game practice many years ago. I think that was back in 2018. And most recently, just not even 1 year ago, Steve Scalise put up on his official page, scalise.house.gov, and a press release statement. Scalise on violent Democrat rhetoric. Enough is enough. So how about that? One of the victims of political violence, in this case from the left, is still speaking out quite vociferously on this. And, I hate to politicize this morning, but it seems like everything is. In most recent years, we have seen a rise of violence and political violence on the left. And it's because many of their leaders have engaged in extremely virulent leftist rhetoric, haven't they? You guys and some of our other shows throughout the day, sometimes we run them on a loop, don't we? We put together all the statements from Nancy Pelosi and Maxine Clark and Chuck Schumer and the others, basically challenging their voters, their followers, their constituents, to get up in their face and take it to the streets and give them no rest. It is really the left that has amped this up. And so until the left decides to amp it down, you've got kind of this Cold War going on this type of rhetoric. And so it would be nice, wouldn't it, if given this horrible circumstance, and we don't know the exact details of why these two Democratic lawmakers were targeted. I have heard that it might have been over a vote they had taken recently. How horrific is that? What a dangerous third world type country we live in, where our political leaders are going to be targeted and assassinated, as Mike correctly said, for carrying out the will of the people as representatives.
So talking about the rhetoric, I want to make sure, because on one level, I do think, let's say politicians who support abortion, I do think they have blood on their hands. I do think Caleb Rowden has blood on his hands for allowing things like Amendment 3 to get through. But at the same time, I think what we're hearing from the left, I think is the difference between, I think you are a threat, I think you do bad things, I think you support bad things. I think we are hearing from the left calls to action, like you said, this get in their face, get in the street, let them, don't let them be comfortable anywhere. So how do we parse that so that the public understands the difference between the rhetorical criticisms of the policies as opposed to the calls to action that arguably leads to these things?
Right. And let me jump in, Tim, because for instance, we mentioned, because I'm fessing up to how much I can't stand Sam Page, not as a policy, but as a person.
Yeah.
But I was the one also saying, stop going to his house and harassing his family. I was very, very vocal about that should be off limits as well.
Yeah, guys, it is at times a fine line, but it's one that I think we need to establish and make sure we don't cross, right? It is absolutely and completely permissible, of course, under all of our constitutional rights and protections. And it's why we are a free country, that we get to criticize our elected leaders for the policy positions they have. But Gabe, you just hit the nail on the head there. It's the call to action that has become so much more than a dog whistle. It's become a freaking trumpet blaring in the streets most days, where these Democrats and those on the left are actually encouraging their followers to go do something to conservative, Republican, libertarian leaning elected officials. That is the line you cannot cross. And unfortunately, that call to action, guys, it has instigated people to take action. We have countless examples over the last few years. I don't notice and I don't see, and I'm not trying to be unfair here, but I don't see that level of a call to action, nor do I see actions being carried out by those on the right. And it starts with Democrats pounding this drum over and over again. They say things like, for example, Kamala Harris and others have regurgitated this talking point about Donald Trump being a threat to democracy and a threat to and calling him a Nazi. Right. Well, that's rhetoric that, in my opinion, crosses the line, because you're saying that someone is a genocidal killer and is a threat to our way of life. Well, you get someone who's maybe just looking for a reason to tip over that edge, and I think you've just granted it to them. Okay,
we're visiting with Tim Jones. You can hear him every afternoon, 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock. We're a little over, Tim, but let me wrap up with this question here. Okay, so what do we do about it to make the situation better? I don't plan on backing down on what I believe in and on the issues and on the candidates I think are bad and the candidates I think are good, but talk to all of us, including us, to say, wait a minute, we all need to be part of the solution to prevent these things from happening while we battle over ideas, because I don't want to back down on what I believe in. But what then should all of us, right and left, including those of us here at News Talk, what should we be doing, and what's the right way to approach this to not back down on the issues, but not give any quarter to anybody who would take this to the level of actual assassination? Because we cannot have a society. We cannot have the society that we think we are and be as good as we think we are or want to be if we allow this type of thing to happen.
Yeah. And Mike, again, it is a distinction with a difference that we all have to begin to try to use our noggins to try and ferret out and to understand. We should absolutely and continuously speak passionately about the ideas we stand for, but we must likewise also speak out against those who are urging violent action to be taken against the people who don't believe in our ideas or who have ideas that are different than ours. Another example, Congressman Goldman, another virulent Trump hater, famous for saying President Trump has to be eliminated. You can't talk about attacking, eliminating, killing the person, right? You can talk about how bad their ideas are, but make sure that in your rhetoric, you're keeping the focus on the principle, on the public policy, and not on the person, not on the personality. It's the personalization of the violent rhetoric and the calls to eliminate, quote, eliminate those people that is the dangerous crossing of the line, in my opinion.
All right, 314-912-1019, still ahead here, right around 6:20. Imagine being told, here's hundreds of millions of dollars just for you from the taxpayers, and then responding by saying, that may not be good enough. I'll tell you who said that right around 6:20 here on 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
News, analysis, opinion.
I've got something to say and I can't hold it any longer.
101.9 and 94.1.
You won't hear the truth anywhere but here. News Talk STL.
News Talk STL.
This is Katie McKinney, founder and head of school for Lafayette Academy in Lake St. Louis. Recently, we had a new second grader come to Lafayette Academy who claimed he was stupid and hated reading. Within months of using our world-class literacy program, he was reading Harry Potter and loving it. He had just not been given the right tools. We invite you to our open house Wednesday, June 25th from 5 till 7 and hear from our current families and learn more about our dedicated teachers and world-class curriculum. To learn more, go to LafayetteAcademy.org. That's LafayetteAcademy.org.
It's a brand new year. Tim Jones to tell you about the brand new things happening at The Hideout, famous for the Sunset Patio, 50 big screen TVs, live music and events, a fantastic game room, and of course, the food. The Hideout has a brand new menu featuring their world famous wings, the best handcrafted burgers, new items like the signature Sunset Dip and Dave's Chili, and a second location at Sugar Creek Golf Course in beautiful High Ridge. Experience the Hideout while enjoying a round of golf. Come in for lunch or dinner. The new 2025 Hideout, hideoutsportsbar.com, hideoutsportsbar.com. We'll definitely see you there.
Why leave your company's story to chance? In today's digital world, video content isn't just an option. It's essential for your success. At Blue Ocean Media Group, we've spent decades crafting compelling visual stories for businesses just like yours. From concept to completion, our award-winning team transforms your vision into powerful video content that connects with your audience and drives results. Don't trust your brand to amateurs. Partner with Blue Ocean Media Group. Visit blueoceanmediagroup.com today, and let's bring your story to life.
All right. We're going to obviously be covering what's happening in the Middle East right now in a huge way. One of the things that I've learned to do over the years, and I know this is generally not always conducive to talk radio, because I'm supposed to jump in right now. Let's hit the emotions, man. Let's redline. Let's do all that sort of stuff. And we're going to talk about it. But I've always kind of had a rule personally over the years of just seeing how things have changed. And now social media comes in, you get all kinds of lousy information, is that let's give it 24 hours to see what's really happening. But we do have some facts. We do know there's mobilization of U.S. military assets. We do know that we are putting our stuff and people in a position to get involved. Now, that's not to say we're going to get involved. Sometimes that's just a show of force, but it's also a step closer to it. So for the next, hour or so, we're going to be obviously relying on some of the national stuff. And then obviously at the top of the hour, I've got some news on that as well.
Yeah, the world is watching. Is the Middle East headed into another war? And will President Trump decide to make the U.S. part of it? We'll have that update for you in minutes. And also, not everybody in radio is ugly. So if you have a smart TV, you can definitely download either the YouTube app or the Rumble app, and you can join in because this is more of a pride thing for me. But whenever we're talking about relevant things, I try to find graphics and images.
Mhm.
I try to give the audience as much information as they possibly can handle. And if you put us on your TV, you can walk around, you can do your morning tasks, and then come back and you can see exactly what we're talking about.
Exactly. I mean, I am kind of ugly, but that's not everybody is. Gabe's a good looking guy.
Oh, Gabe's handsome.
Exactly. All right. 5:51 right now. Okay. So you remember that property tax deal that was made to win over the vote in the Missouri State Senate?
Yeah.
So the Chiefs and the Royals get their hundreds of millions of dollars, of $1.5 billion in total and everything. And Senator Rick Bratton, among others, negotiated a property tax bill that had one application on some counties, another application on other counties, if they vote for it, and then other counties, like St. Louis County is not even included in it, from what I can tell. So there are already questions as to whether that's going to survive if a court challenge is filed to it.
Oh,
so the bottom line is that it's possible that this deal could have been made. The votes could have been, I don't want to say sold because negotiations happen. The corporate welfare happens, but the other part of the deal doesn't go through if the courts block it.
So just to make sure I'm understanding properly. So the deal that was negotiated to pass through the bill that also damaged the reputation of
Freedom Caucus
because of this scandal.
Yep.
Well, I wouldn't say scandal because it was not the entire group.
It's politics.
But that benefit that he sold out for may not even come to fruition.
That's exactly it.
Wow.
So I checked with my buddy Dave Rowland he's one of the probably best known constitutional lawyers in the state of Missouri. And because I saw that he was quoted in a news article saying this probably would not pass the constitutional muster of the Missouri Constitution. And I asked Dave about that, and here's what he told me.
The bill that the Missouri legislature recently passed creates different levels of taxation that are permitted in Missouri counties. And it kind of groups counties into one of these two groups, but there's no clear rhyme or reason as to why one set of counties is in one group and why the other set of counties is in the other. This runs afoul of a provision of the Missouri Constitution that prohibits what are called local or special laws. And the basic principle embodied in that provision is that if a policy is a good idea, it should apply for everybody. It shouldn't selectively apply to one part of the state, but not the other. It shouldn't apply to one group of people, but not the other. So a challenge needs to be brought. And I think that the challenge would be well-founded, but there is a question about how the courts would treat it. If the courts decide that they just think that the division of the counties is roughly rational, then they may well uphold this provision.
Yeah. So there's the what Dave thinks is the correct application, and there's judges who may not want to mess with the politics of it all. So, but that was brought up at the time because, we were talking to, some of our lawmakers here and, the lieutenant governor and some others. It was pointed out that the way this was done, and this is one of the things I think that caused that fracture in the Freedom Caucus, is that regardless of what happens, the way this is written, if the property tax relief part of this, which as Dave Rowland was pointing out, doesn't apply to everybody, just some, his district's taken care of pretty well. Others, they would have to vote on it, but, and then others don't even have the option. Mm-hmm. But even if that is struck down by the courts, the way that this law is structured, the Chiefs and the Royals are safe. They get our money.
Wow.
Yeah. So all of this negotiation, it turns out possibly, now who knows, maybe nobody's going to file a lawsuit against it. Maybe it's just going to be allowed to go. Maybe somebody will file a lawsuit and then the courts are like, yeah, we're not messing with it. We're not getting that. That's your politics. We're not getting involved in that. But it is possible that the deal could be struck down by the courts, but preserving the corporate welfare for the billionaires.
So quite literally then, in that case, only the Kansas City teams would actually have gotten anything out of this deal.
Assuming they even stay in the state. Because they're now, I read an article on Outkick, which I want to talk about here in just a little bit, where the Chiefs basically were like, you gave us something. We'll see if it's good enough. Basically the equivalent of, oh, you want to take me to the prom in that car? You want to take me out on a date in that car? That's what you're wearing? We'll see if somebody else has something better, you know. So I know my worth, I know my value.
Kansas City Gold Diggers.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah. All right. I saw this on social media yesterday. Missouri State Highway Patrol was among those who were texting out, hey, watch out for those scam text messages. Mm-hmm. I got one yesterday.
Oh,
I got it. I got the scam text message.
You got a printout too for those watching the stream.
Yeah, because I got this text yesterday. I was about to leave work. It was just afternoon here. It said, Missouri Department of Transportation final notice. Enforcement penalties begin on June 18th. Our records show that as of today, you still have an outstanding traffic ticket. I've not had a traffic ticket in like 20 years.
Wow.
In accordance with Missouri State Administrative Code, that's not what it's called. It's called Missouri State Revised Statutes of Missouri. It's not called Missouri State Administrative Code. 15C, which is just nonsense. If you do not complete payment by June 17th, we will take the following actions. Report to the MoDOT violation database, which does not exist. That's not a real thing. Suspend your vehicle registration starting June 18th. That's not a real thing. Suspend driving privileges for 30 days. Only courts can do that. Transfer to a toll booth and charge 35% service fee. That doesn't even make sense.
No.
You may be prosecuted and your credit score will be affected. What? So everybody is getting these things. If you get those, it is a complete scam. Report it as junk, but do not, for the love of all that's good and holy, click on the link that's included. Do not do that.
Hi, Kirk Hilsinger here, and I'm the new chairman of the St. Louis Republican Central Committee. I invite you to our meetings that take place the first Thursday of every month at 3710 Hampton Avenue. You can stay connected with us to learn more about how you can get involved, make your voice heard, and contribute to our shared goals. Together, we can make a difference in the city of St. Louis and the state of Missouri. For more info, visit our new website at stl-gop.com. That's stl-gop.com.
Paid for by St. Louis City Republican PAC. Curtis Farber, Treasurer.
All aboard!
There's a new way to travel, and it's one of the oldest forms of transportation. Travel by train. Yes, consider traveling around the United States on Amtrak. Traveling by train is a lot less of a headache than taking a plane, and you'd be surprised how many places you can go on an Amtrak. And there's no passports or IDs needed. Find out how to get where you're going as soon as tomorrow by train. Call the Amtrak Travel Hotline right now. We'll book your trip and email your tickets within minutes. Skip the drive to the airport and skip the lines. Call right now to book your Amtrak reservations. We service most of the United States.
All aboard!
Do something new. Travel by Amtrak today.
800-867-6917. 800-867-6917. 800-867-6917. That's 800-867-6917.
Number one for live and local
conservative talk.
I've been a registered Democrat for 28 years. I'm really glad you're talking about this. You gotta love these idiots out here. They think we're all stupid, I guess.
news, analysis, opinion.
Totally agree on that. I disagree with you.
It's over.
Very upset.
Thanks for taking my call. Thank you for taking my call. Thank you very much for taking my call.
Wanted to ask you really quick. Is there room on the bandwagon for me?
101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL. KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Belfast, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 101.9, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Rich Thomason. President Trump now back at the White House after departing the G7 gathering.
The president abruptly left the G7 summit in Canada one day early, returning here to meet with his national security team in the White House Situation Room. He told reporters on Air Force One that Iran should have agreed to a nuclear deal and that now he's looking at better than a ceasefire between Iran and Israel. Asked what that means, the president said an end, a real end to the conflict, and that he was looking for a complete give up by Iran. Greg Clugston, the White House.
Israel has started targeting Tehran, and traffic is jammed with people trying to escape the city. Iran, in return, has been firing missiles at central Israel, keeping the Iron Dome missile defense system busy. As for President Trump's handling of the Iran situation, Senator Tom Cotton says couldn't be much better.
I think President Trump has been pitch perfect on this campaign going back to Thursday, really going back 10 years. And it's been clear from the beginning that we cannot allow to have Iran get a nuclear weapon, which means they cannot be allowed to get enrichment capability.
The Arkansas Republican on the Salem radio network. An appeals court holds a hearing today on the president's deployment of National Guard troops to Los Angeles, a move challenged by California Governor Gavin Newsom. 2 people are missing, 6 others confirmed dead, the result of flash flooding across parts of north central West Virginia. State of emergency declared in hard-hit Ohio County. Many homes have been heavily damaged or completely destroyed with high water and mud everywhere. The National Hurricane Center says Tropical Storm Eric has formed off southern Mexico. That storm expected to become a hurricane by tomorrow. On Wall Street this morning, the Dow futures are down 288 points. NASDAQ futures off 166. More on these stories at townhall.com.
The following is not an actor, but a real-life story from Trinity Debt Management.
Hi, my name's Neil. I have some advice for you if you've been trying to break free from credit card debt. You can start by doing what I did. Get your bills together and call Trinity Debt Management. Trinity is dedicated to helping people like me become debt-free. When I called, my first experience was a feeling of relief. My counselor was kind, and best of all, she didn't judge me. In just a few minutes, she helped me figure out a plan that consolidated all my bills into one lower monthly payment. This substantially reduced my high interest rates and put me on the road to success. In the end, I saved thousands in interest, and today my credit card debt is a thing of the past.
If credit card debt has you down, call Trinity at 1-800
1-800-990-6976.
My name is Neil. Take it from someone who's been there. Call Trinity and become debt-free for keeps.
1-800-990-6976.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
Patchy, dense early morning fog makes way for partly cloudy and hotter conditions today. 91 for the high, heat index around 95. Stray thundershower possible this afternoon and this evening, but this is a dry day for most of us. Increasing clouds tonight down to 74. Some weakening storms and rain will make a run at us Wednesday morning, but we expect them to fade. But a few hours later, potentially severe storms flare up in the afternoon and early evening Wednesday. Let's be ready for that. Tomorrow's high at 86. From the First Alert 4 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Matt Chambers.
This hour of News Talk STL brought to you by Onder Law. Call for a free consultation because winning is what we do at Onder Law. Call 314 or 618-9000.
Get ready, St. Louis. The Cubs are coming to town June 23rd through the 26th. The Cardinals host baseball's best rivalry at Busch Stadium in a series that always delivers. The Chicago STL rivalry is legendary, and the energy in the ballpark will be electric. It's the perfect way to spend a summer day or night at the ballpark with passionate fans and nonstop action. Don't miss out. Get your tickets today at cardinals.com/tickets.
Hey, this is Sonny Gray, St. Louis Cardinals for the Lou.
Catch a Cardinals game on your next date night or friends night out. Whether it's love in the stands or laughter with your crew, nothing beats ballpark vibes under the lights. Cold drinks, great eats, and Cardinals baseball. Check out Friday Night Live at Busch Stadium and enjoy happy hour price food and drinks all game long. Every Friday home game. Get your tickets today at cardinals.com and make memories that go beyond the scoreboard. Busch Stadium, where great nights begin.
News, analysis, opinion.
Isn't it wonderful that we're keeping criminals out of our country?
How the mayors in these sanctuary jurisdictions are dealing with it, that's interesting.
Safety is our primary concern.
1019 and 94.1 News Talk STL. Mike Ferguson.
This is the kind of adventure I usually have to force upon us, and here it is, falling into our laps.
Gabe Pfeiffer.
They're buying it.
Get up! Get up! Can't you hear the alarm? Get up, St. Louis.
Watch a couple squats, son.
Mike Ferguson in the morning on News Talk STL. Get up! Get up! This is your cousin God.
All right, the big question right now, we're talking the big question around the world. Are we, meaning the United States, on the verge of going into another war in the Middle East? That's going to be a prevailing question throughout the day. Feel free to send us your thoughts on that. You can do that on social media right now or email or tweet at us. Also, the president's authority to activate the Guard is being put to the test in courts again. That's happening today. And standing up for the Second Amendment in Illinois. Yeah, that's interesting that's actually happening. It is 6:06 right now. Gabe's here. Jerome's here. I'm Mike. Let's go ahead and dump some news on you.
The Morning News Dump brought to you by Common Sense Rentals. The Morning News Dump.
Are you joking? Is this a joke?
Listen, folks. The Morning News Dump.
All right, President Trump urging people to evacuate Tehran immediately while he was attending the G7 summit in Canada yesterday. Now, this comes after several days of missile exchanges between Iran and Israel, with Israel going after Iran's nuclear problem. United States Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth was on primetime with Jesse Waters on Fox, and he says that the U.S. is postured defensively in the region.
We believe that Iran, as President has said from the beginning, should not have a nuclear weapon. That position hasn't changed. They can give it up peacefully. That position hasn't changed. And as a result, right now, we've got assets in the region and we're going to defend them.
Okay, so we are moving assets and people towards the Middle East. We are moving towards there. I'm not sure I buy that that's a defensive measure. I mean, protecting our stuff is certainly one thing, but I don't think you move what we're moving there. I think you're sending a message when you do that. And so what I'm just telling everybody right now, kind of the questions that I'm going to be asking. One, should Iran be allowed to obtain or develop a nuclear weapon? And then the second question, though, because like, for instance, the Daily Wire did a survey on that. And of course, overwhelmingly, the conservative audience says absolutely not. It was like 90-10. But then they asked, should we get involved to stop them?
Right.
And then there was,
and then it flips.
It was like 80-20 or something like that. Like, no, we shouldn't. Okay. So it's not as cut and dry as you would think. But I don't know that I ever in my career remember a president telling the population of a foreign city to evacuate.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how else you read that other than hold on to your butts.
Yeah, there's a lot there. Now, of course, this is a very different president than we've seen. So it's sometimes hard to interpret his actions based on historical presidential actions.
Yeah.
So, and when asked about that, it was like, hey, why did you tell Tehran to evacuate? He's like, I don't want people to be hurt.
Right.
Now, is he expressing, and the question in my mind, is he expressing an aversion to civilian casualties based on what Israel is doing or is about to do, or is it based on what we're gearing up to do?
Right.
So, well, we don't know. He won't tell us. And rightfully so. I'm nervous. I'm definitely nervous for this situation. Although it reminds me of some previous situations where we've had to send an aircraft carrier into the region, basically as an act of intimidation. We've dropped some bombs on people. We've sent some what do you call it? Cruise missiles into certain buildings and completely destroyed blocks of Middle Eastern countries, and not gotten into a actual direct war.
Now, I do want to also add real quick, 14 of the 17 top military commanders of Iran have been confirmed to have been eliminated. So maybe if something is going to happen, this might be the opportunity to do it.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
There's about 100 different angles to this. I'm really curious how people feel about that. That's what because you just said you're nervous about it.
Mm-hmm.
I saw this news last night. I'm like, it's got a. It affects us.
Yes,
because
absolutely.
We've been through Middle Eastern wars, and we've got so and there's a fracture on the right. People saying, wait a minute, I didn't want to go to another Middle Eastern war, and so others are saying, yeah, but. So I'm curious. So send me a note. Let me know what you think here. Get this. We're going to talk about this in more depth about an hour or so from now. California state lawmakers working on a bill to criminalize law enforcement's use of face coverings.
Okay.
Yeah. So many police right now, particularly federal law enforcement, are now wearing masks because of threats to themselves and their families by left-wing activists who have doxed officers around the country.
Right.
The No Secret Police Act would make wearing a mask while enforcing the law a misdemeanor. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security calls the bill despicable. It is expected to pass through California's legislature because they are this is part of their sanctuary state thing.
I did see this, and it's very much in line with what they've been talking about recently. And of course, the opposite is the case when it comes to the protesters. They want protesters to be able to cover their faces. So it's very interesting to me. I don't agree with that. I don't agree that law enforcement should be forced to put themselves in danger because of that. They already have a badge, which is an identification of their authority.
They're covering that too.
They're covering badge numbers.
The law actually says they would not be allowed to cover their badge.
Oh, they've been covering their badges too.
They've been covering their badges.
Okay, so
too.
that's a problem.
Yeah,
that's a problem to me.
I definitely agree. The badge should be visible, but if you want to cover your face, you're not stalked or harassed.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So 7:05, we're going to talk to former St. Louis County Police Chief Tim Fitch about that. Border Czar Tom Homan was on the Ingram Angle last night talking about Governor Gavin Newsom's pushback against ICE and basically border enforcement in the state. He's saying that the governor's plan is going to actually bring more violence to blue cities and blue states.
I've said for 2 months, sanctuary cities, how we deal with them, we flood the zone. If we can't arrest a bad guy in the jail, in the safety and security of jail, which is safer for the officer, safer for the alien, certainly safer for the community, then we're going to flood the zone. We're going to send many more officers in the community to find a bad guy.
Okay, so related to that, the federal appeals court hearing on President Trump's deployment of National Guard troops in L.A., that is just hours away.
Late last week, a federal judge ruled that the president illegally deployed the National Guard to help with L.A. protests and said he must return control of the troops to California's governor. But the Ninth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals stepped in immediately and temporarily blocked that judge's order. The court said it would hold a hearing on the matter on Tuesday. The order applied only to the National Guard troops and not Marines who were also deployed to Los Angeles. Greg Clugston, the White House.
Okay, so I don't know if there's going to be a decision rendered today, but whatever the decision is going to be a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. This is kind of going to determine how presidents are able to use National Guard. in spite of whatever the governor of a particular state has to say about it. So this is it's going to be a very interesting ruling, whichever way it comes down.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Some prosecutors in Illinois say the state's most recent gun ban is unconstitutional, and they're calling for it to be struck down by the courts.
Really?
Yeah. So that call is being led by Madison County's prosecutor. Here's KMOV's Corey Starks to explain.
State's Attorney Tom Hain joining dozens of other Illinois elected state's attorneys in this lawsuit. They claim the ban on so-called assault weapons does not follow the historical tradition of firearm regulations in the United States.
Hain and 34 other state's attorneys in Illinois have filed a brief in opposition to that law in the 7th Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals, where a challenge to the so-called Protect Illinois Communities Act is being heard. Yeah. All right. Between the after-school needs that happen every summer and the devastation of the tornado, the food bank is asking for extra help right now.
Oh, yeah. All of these aid organizations are, I think, underwater right now.
Yeah. While donations of non-perishable food are helpful, don't get me wrong. So food drives are helpful. They'll take it. Money goes farther.
Oh, sure.
The St. Louis Area Food Bank says each $50 donation feeds a family in our region for 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
That's actually true because they basically have deals worked out with food distributors to buy surplus stuff. And essentially, sometimes all they have to pay for is the shipping.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons that your dollar will go so far, their dollar will go 10 times farther because of the way they've been able to make those arrangements. More information at stlfoodbank.org. All right, the Cardinals have a chance to turn things around starting tonight. Redbirds have lost 7 of their last 8 games, but a series against the hapless White Sox starts this evening. Matthew Liberatore is going to be on the mound for the Cardinals. He is 3-6 on the season, so he needs to turn stuff around as well.
For real.
First pitch is at 6:40, and the game is on FanDuel. This could be another one of those things. Just you've noticed in sports in St. Louis, it's all either we're really hot, really high, or we're really sucking really low. Just like it's like nothing in between.
Seriously.
Right now. Stop playing with my emotions, teams.
Inspiration, you have a soul so dark, it is no more. And all at once depart, no destination, making cold my heart to fight your war. Stop it right now.
Mike Ferguson in the morning.
There's something wrong with him. He's a sick puppy.
On News Talk STL.
Stop it right now before you blow us all away.
Columbo here for my friends at Bluff City Outdoors in Alton. The knowledgeable staff at Bluff City has served the St. Louis outdoor community for decades, and they can take care of all your bow hunting needs, all your trapping needs, all your fishing needs, and more. Plus, while you're there, you can schedule a trip with a local fishing guide and shoot in their archery range. Bluff City Outdoors is open 7 days a week, 1 mile east of Fast Eddie's at 2813 East Broadway in Alton. Follow them on Facebook and at bluffcityoutdoors.com.
Hey, Jamie Allman here for the great Window World. You know, just over the last 20 years of Window World being in St. Louis, they've improved the look and thermal efficiency of more than 76,000 customers in St. Louis. Plus, Window World windows come with a lifetime warranty that covers all parts, glass breakage, and labor. And now Window World is now offering 36 months, same as cash financing with approved credit. Call them today at 314-993-1800, 314-993-1800.
Hey, firearms enthusiast, looking for a family and veteran-owned shop with a wide selection of products and services? Head to DG Firearms, 115 Business Highway 61 North in Bowling Green. DG Firearms has been your one-stop shop for custom ARs, Cerakoting, laser engraving, gunsmithing, suppressors, ammo, and reloading supplies. DG Firearms, 115 Business Highway 61 North in Bowling Green, and online at dgfirearmsllc.com.
Hey, Columbo here for Intervine, a great local company that has customers all across the country due to the quality of their products. Intervine has the best flashlights, lanterns, headlamps, and even batteries, including the new Monster 2000 Lumen waterproof lantern and the Sentinel 2000 self-defense flashlight. Our home and vehicles are full of great Intervine products, and right now you can shop their website and get 25% off your entire purchase just by using my name, Tony, as your promo code. That's promo code Tony at Intervine.com.
This hour of Mike Ferguson in the Morning is brought to you by Stifel. Request a portfolio review from your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
Hey, this is Larry Connors. Make sure you're listening later today at 6 o'clock on News Talk STL for my show, Larry Connors USA. Now, back to Mike Ferguson in the morning.
Okay, so basically the mindset or the vibe is something like this, Gabe. Thanks, I guess, for that handout, suckers, but maybe I can find somebody else who likes me more better.
Wow.
Yeah, that seems to be the attitude of the billionaires who own the Kansas City Chiefs.
Mm-hmm. Now, are they doing this now?
Yeah.
All right. So we also got the lawsuit tourism.
Yeah, lawsuit tourism.
Okay,
yeah.
so if Illinois high taxes and ridiculous regulations aren't enough to scare away employers, maybe the threat of frivolous lawsuits will be. At 6:35, find out why there's a push to get Governor J.B. Pritzker to veto a bill the trial lawyers just love.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting because it's a business group. We're going to talk to one of their folks, and a lot of times you hear, business representative. Okay, no, listen, Illinois is running off their businesses. They're running off their taxpayers. They're running off their homeowners. They're running off their businesses. And if they haven't run off enough, the Democrats said, "Oh, we got an idea. Let's make it worse."
Yeah, pretty much.
So we'll talk about that here in just a little bit. Okay,
dummies.
So hundreds of millions of dollars of money from taxpayers is not enough to get a commitment from the Chiefs to stay in Missouri. So here's the question:
This is crazy.
Did our lawmakers get played?
Well, you know what? It feels like it.
Yeah.
I thought this was a deal. Like,
Right.
that this is a requirement. It's like, okay, you say you're going to stay if we get you the money. Well, now we got you the money. So aren't you supposed to stay now and tell us that that's the case?
Yeah. So I found the article on outkick.com, which is, I don't think it's the biggest sports website yet, but it's certainly
it's getting there.
One of the biggest ones out there. And the headline is Kansas City Chiefs secure massive handout from Missouri to renovate Arrowhead. But when you look at the article, you click on it, Ian Miller's article on Outkick, the headline on the page itself says Kansas City Chiefs complaining after getting massive handout from Missouri taxpayers to renovate Arrowhead.
Complaining.
Yeah. So, and I read the article, and I don't know that it's necessarily complaining, but it's the equivalent of, oh, you're going to take me out to a really fancy 5-star dinner, and then you're going to take me out to the Metropolitan Gala, and then you're going to take me out on a private jet to, something, to watch the sunset in Paris, but you're driving that.
Oh, man.
That's all you gave me to buy me the new that's it. Okay, so that's essentially
why'd you pick that color?
Right, exactly. So basically the Kansas City Chiefs put out a statement after the special session, basically saying, okay, that's okay, but it will influence our discussions on where we go from here.
It will influence their discussions.
They absolutely made it a point to not commit to staying in Missouri, even after getting lawmakers pressured into delivering hundreds of millions of dollars for taxpayers. And the Outkick article, it's interesting. It says, the median income, household income in Missouri is about $68,000.
Yeah,
per year.
Sounds about right.
That's about right. And that's median income per household.
Yeah.
Per household. So husband and wife, if there's, a married couple or a couple living together. So we're basically a blue collar state.
Yes.
For the most part. And the Chiefs are like, maybe that'll be enough. Maybe that'll help. But they made it very, very clear. Oh, we're not promising you anything. We wanted you to promise us something.
Right.
But we're not promising you squat.
Yeah.
So I asked the Show Me Institute's Patrick Toohey about that. And here's what he told me about as far as what should lawmakers and what should taxpayers take from this. Here's Patrick Toohey.
No one should be surprised to learn that even after getting everything they wanted from the legislature and the governor, the Chiefs are still not willing to commit to stay in Missouri. These teams make decisions based solely on what is in their best interests. They're not operating out of love of the state or their fans or romantic notions of pride or anything sentimental. As I said in my testimony before the House, the teams are likely to take the offer from Missouri and use it to get a better offer from Kansas or to play Clay and Jackson County taxpayers against each other. This is what happens every time. The lesson for everyone is that the teams and their owners do not love us, and we shouldn't let our love of them cloud our thinking. Elected leaders must act in the best interest of taxpayers, but that's not what happened here. Our leaders let the teams dictate the terms of negotiation. The teams even set a deadline for the legislature to act. And in return, taxpayers are getting precious little, if anything. The governor and the legislature let themselves get hustled.
Yeah. I think Patrick is 100% correct.
Totally right. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Can we repeal it?
Well, not without another special session. It's already been signed into law.
Repeal it.
Yeah. Well,
look, that would be a flex. I would. You know how much good cred the entire legislature and the governor would get after that debacle. Is like, oh, you don't want to repeal it. Come back, vote on it. It should take 20 minutes, guys.
Yep. And the weird part is, and we were talking about this just a little bit ago, right before you got in, Gabe, is the deal that was made to get the votes of the Freedom Caucus guys, the property tax relief thing, which doesn't guarantee property tax for most of the state.
Right. Yeah.
That appears to be vulnerable to a court challenge.
Oh, geez. So that's going to turn out to be basically a scam too.
Yeah, because I talked to Dave Rowland, our favorite constitutional attorney, who's a truly one of the experts on Missouri's constitution, and in addition to the U.S. Constitution. I mean, he used to work for the Institute for Justice. Now he runs the the Freedom Center of Missouri. But outside of his role there, I saw him quoted in an article that was published in Springfield, and I said, "Hey, Dave, tell me about this." Basically, the state constitution has a provision that says if you're going to make a tax policy, it's got to apply to everybody. You can't carve out certain areas,
right,
to have different tax laws. And that's what this thing does. Because, Senator Rick Bratton, again, who's a good guy and right most of the time, it's unfortunate that his deal making fractured the Freedom Caucus. Hopefully they can rebuild. But he took a deal to protect his district, and they got special tax relief, property tax relief, and then dozens of other states are going to be allowed to vote on that, and then other states aren't included at all.
You mean
the property
districts?
tax rate? No, I'm sorry, counties.
Yep.
Yeah, the counties in his district. Basically, he got to guarantee property tax caps relief right there. Something like 90 some other counties. They can vote on it under the new law, and then other counties don't get anything from this deal.
Why is everybody getting duped?
Right. And that's the thing is, and the weird part is that there were so many of us, and it was conservatives who were jumping up and down going, don't do this.
Right.
This is clearly a hustle. And I think Patrick made a great point when he says, you let these teams tell the legislature what their deadline was going to be. You let them tell the legislature what their term, basically the Chiefs and the Royals told the governor and told the legislature, you are going to come back into a special session. You are going to deliver this money from it, and you'd better do it by this time. So here, basically, here is what you owe me, and here is your curfew. You will deliver taxpayers' money for this for us or else.
Yeah.
And
basically.
so, the lawmakers ended up getting duped. Rick Bratton, I saw he put a video explaining, his thought process on Facebook. And he basically said, well, they were going to get the votes anyway, so I got the best property tax deal I could get. Except they cleared by one vote. That's just not true. They weren't going to get it. And I don't know whether he was concerned about the Freedom Caucus being blamed for the Chiefs and the Royals leaving. Maybe that was the case. I don't know. But the bottom line is that our lawmakers basically got pushed around.
They got played. They
got pushed around. Governor Kehoe's been a pleasant surprise to a lot of us conservatives, but I disagree with him completely on this one. I think this is corporate welfare, and I think the Chiefs' reaction in particular confirms what Patrick Tuohy just said. Football fans, sports fans may love the Chiefs, especially since they're now, one of the top teams in the NFL and will be likely for years. but they don't love you back.
Yeah.
They couldn't care less. If they could get a better deal and make more money in Nashville or in Salt Lake City or somewhere else, they're out the door because they're a business and they are a $1 billion plus business. You are just sources of revenue. You're the market for them, but this isn't the free market. They pushed a small state legislature around and pressured them under threats of leaving.
It's crazy.
To give them hundreds of millions of dollars of taxpayer money. And then now basically are just shrugging like, yeah, we'll see whether that's good enough or not.
Quit simping. Know your worth. Honestly,
yeah.
Come on, legislature, read the room. I mean, well, here's the thing that I'm still not getting. Our politicians don't seem to be reading the room on public sentiment.
No.
We already said the people in the region who have the most to lose if those teams were to go. They already said, it's fine. It's fine. Don't do not just it's fine. No, go.
Right.
If you really want to go, then leave. And then our elected officials just started hand wringing all of a sudden as though the more important people or the more important group in the three-way discussions between the teams, the legislature, and the people were the teams. I thought we were the more important ones.
Right.
Gosh, what's happening?
This is I think unfortunately proving us, and I mean like conservative media proving us right.
Yeah.
Is that corporate welfare, bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
There's a fine line somewhere between public-private partnerships on some things.
Sure. Very few, vanishingly few.
This ain't one of them.
Mm-mm. Don't do it.
I'm a sports guy, and even I say, you know what? Don't let the door hit you on the way out. Or do. I don't care.
That well should be dry. Honestly,
it really should.
The money that we give away to sports teams anywhere in the country should be that well should be dry. That money tree is dead.
Yeah.
Let it burn in fire.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So that's Missouri. In Illinois, it's bad enough. One of the reasons their economy is tanking, your economy is tanking in Illinois, is because it's hostile to employers. It's hostile to jobs. And so Democrats in the legislature have said, you know what? We can do worse.
They sure did.
And so Governor Pritzker's got to make a decision on one of those bills. And we're going to find out how that would affect you right around 6:34.
Someone save me from the haze. It's just another war. Just another family torn.
Mike Ferguson in the morning.
Our country was founded by geniuses, but it's being run by idiots.
On Newstalk STL. Vic for Vets honoree of the day.
Monday on Vic for Vets, we honored John Dominic Feeney, who fought in the Civil War. We want to thank our supporters, DG Firearms, Patriot Heating and Cooling, and Best Buy Florida.
The Vic Verselli Show, weekdays 9 to noon on Newstalk STL. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
Patchy, dense early morning fog makes way for partly cloudy and hotter conditions today. 91 for the high, heat index around 95. Stray thundershower possible this afternoon and this evening, but it's a dry day for most of us. Increasing clouds tonight down to 74. Some weakening storms and rain will make a run at us Wednesday morning, but we expect them to fade. But a few hours later, potentially severe storms flare up in the afternoon and early evening Wednesday. Let's be ready for that. Tomorrow's high at 86. From the First Alert 4 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Matt Chambers.
Hey, it's Vic Borselli here with our great friend Chris Cooper from Serenity Wealth Management. Hi, Chris. How are you, Vic? I don't want to put anybody else down, but that when you go up and visit you at Serenity Wealth, your place looks like home.
So a lot of financial advisory offices, they have, the big mahogany desk or the big marble entryways and things like that. The stock market channel on the TV when you walk in the door, right? That doesn't really drive a good conversation. Good financial guidance and advice starts with a good conversation. People are nervous. People are afraid to talk about finances, right? And so you can see a little standoffish. Well, my objective is to try to have a good casual conversation. By having those conversations about life, goals, objectives, it's what makes me understand what our financials are supposed to fund.
So if somebody does want to have a good conversation, how do they do that? How do they find you?
Our website is the best way to do that because you can get all the information you need to understand where we are, get a little bit more information, all that. SerenityWealthNow.com.
Reach out to Chris and Stacy today at SerenityWealthNow.com.
Investment advice offered through Fortis Capital Advisors, LLC.
Since 1995, Renewal by Anderson has helped St. Louis homeowners upgrade with windows and doors. Now it's our 30th anniversary sale. You'll get $1,995 off every project. No gimmicks, real savings, and the nation's best warranty. The offer ends June 30th, so you don't want to wait. There are some restrictions. Visit rbastl.com. Renewal by Anderson. Superior products, exceptional service.
Are you sitting on hidden treasure? Manchester Coin and Jewelry wants to turn your valuables into cash. We're Missouri's premier gold buyers and jewelry specialists with years of expertise. We offer top dollar for your coins, antiques, precious metals, and collectibles. From gold and silver to clocks and jewelry, we buy it all. Don't let your treasures collect dust. Let Manchester Coin and Jewelry give you the best value. Visit online at buyingvaluables.net or come see him today at 141 in Manchester and tell him NewsTalkSTL sent you.
No big old corporate lib AM station telling us what to say here. Conservative talk for St. Louis. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
Hi, this is Aaron Dorr. Check out my show, Shall Not Be Infringed, Sunday nights at 9. But now it's more of Mike Ferguson in the morning on News Talk STL.
All right, it's one thing to market your state as a tourist destination.
Right.
I mean, there's some states that can do that really, really easy. Obviously, Florida with the great weather,
California,
you can do that. With the Disney stuff and California, like you said,
Alaska even.
Alaska. I know some people love it. Colorado has the nature, the mountains, the skiing. You've got all sorts of things you can do, but usually marketing your state as a tourist destination is not about trying to attract lawsuits against your businesses.
You dummies.
Illinois Democrats are on the verge of being Illinois Democrats again.
Now, are we on the verge of going to war in the Middle East again? That's another question that's on a lot of people's minds. So we're going to bring you that update in at 6:50.
All right. Do businesses need another reason to leave or to avoid the land of Lincoln? I mean, my gosh, I grew up in Illinois. Okay. My childhood, at least in Illinois, central and western Illinois.
So close to your heart.
Yeah. My dad, pastored the church in Bunker Hill, right across the river from where basically I'm living right now, for years and years and years. And we see terrible policy. We see the taxes. We see the regulations. We see all of this stuff. So Illinois Democrats basically are saying, oh, no, we can do worse.
Hold my beer.
Oh, my goodness. We're now joined by Mark Denzler from the Illinois Manufacturers Association. Mark, hey, thanks for being on the program here, especially a little bit early in the day. So what are we talking about here? Governor Pritzker, as I understand, has not announced a decision on the bill, but essentially, what are we doing? Are we exposing businesses to more liability? Are we looking to allow the courts to be abused? What is it that's possible with this bill that's been passed by the Assembly?
Well, good morning. Thank you so much for having me. And Illinois is a great tourism state. We just don't want it to be litigation tourism. What this bill is seeking to do, an initiative from the trial bar in Illinois, is to allow an entity to be sued in Illinois, even if, for example, the company is not located in Illinois, the alleged incident didn't happen in Illinois, the alleged person who was harmed wasn't located in Illinois, but solely the fact they're registered to do business in Illinois means they could be sued in Illinois. And what doing business means is you could have a salesperson that happens to come through 6 times a year, and they have to register with the Secretary of State. And so what this bill does is allow all these lawsuits to be filed in Illinois, even if the actions didn't occur in this state.
Morning, Mark. Gabe Pfeiffer here. So it's sounding like kind of like the bizarro version of Delaware. Because at one point, Delaware was the place where you incorporated your business because it was very, very friendly. And company could be doing business anywhere in the country, but they were incorporated in Delaware. This sounds kind of like the opposite.
Yeah, the photo negative.
The photo negative, the bizarro version. Where it's you could be sued. I run through an example for me of what that would be like. Having somebody just randomly sue your business.
Yeah, I mean, this is the ultimate venue shopping forum, right? The trial lawyers are picking out the friendliest court in the state of Illinois where they want to file a lawsuit. And, it's going to increase costs. It's going to have a chilling effect on the business community to the point that New York's governor, Democrat Governor Kathy Hochul, has vetoed the same legislation twice in New York. If that doesn't tell you anything, the fact that the governor of New York twice has vetoed a similar bill, Illinois would be the second state in the country that would do this. But again, in terms of it, you could have a California company, you could have an incident that occurred in California and the worker living in California, but the fact that that business may have sold something in Illinois and they had another person who was registered to do business in Illinois, they could then be sued in Illinois courts. And whether it's Madison County, whether it's Cook County, there doesn't have to be any justification that, the business doesn't have to be operating in Illinois. It is the ultimate, Illinois wants to be America's courtroom, I guess. And, we're already overburdened here, but this would be we'd create a lawsuit haven for these trial attorneys.
Okay, so who benefits from this? I mean, obviously attorneys charge. I mean, why would it be beneficial for a trial attorney to sue ABC company that did something questionable in California and sue them in Illinois, which I would assume they're suing under Illinois' laws, even if what happened was somewhere else? So who benefits from this other than an attorney who's charging hundreds of dollars an hour?
It really is those attorneys. Illinois has, there's no caps on damages here, whereas other states have created laws that avoid these jackpot justice. But because Illinois laws and Illinois is seen as the tort reform groups have called it a judicial hellhole because of these massive verdicts. And so really it's just forum shopping. So the trial lawyers are looking for courts that are friendlier to them where they can get bigger awards and bigger findings for their clients. And so ultimately, that's what it's all about, is how much they can sue an employer for and how much money they can get.
Okay, so what the way I usually war game these sort of situations is, all right, well, what is going to be the human response, the normal, intelligent human response to this new piece of legislation? Because we know these things aren't static. So if I'm running a business, let's say in Missouri, and I can't, how do I prevent myself from being exposed in Illinois? Is it simply just never doing business with anybody, even from Illinois?
That's really the case. You would, if you're a business and you don't want to risk this, you're then not going to file with the Illinois Secretary of State to do business in Illinois. And that means, you may not have a sales office in Illinois. Your folks may not spend time in Illinois. You're just simply going to not register to do business here. And you'll do business, in Kentucky and Iowa and Indiana and Wisconsin, everywhere else. But you may just choose not to do business in Illinois because you want to avoid that threat of potentially being sued here.
We're visiting with Mark Denzler from the Illinois Manufacturers Association. Could this affect e-commerce? I mean, am I exposing something to my business? Am I exposing liability, even if I don't do business in Illinois, but I sell to people in Illinois? I don't register something, I just ship something there. And so I'm wondering about the chilling effect and how this frankly could be upheld as constitutional. If I violate a law in Missouri with my business, why on earth would in Illinois, why would there be a jurisdictional claim in Illinois? Because a lawyer says I can get $2 million out of you there, whereas in Missouri I can only get $750,000.
Well, that's exactly the point that we're fighting back, and this is a traditional trial bar deal where the amendment was released in the final 48 hours of session. There was literally the IMA testified in committee. The Senate didn't allow testimony on the bill. It jammed through on Democrat majorities, and we're asking the governor to veto this because, again, the governor's done some good things in terms of trying to attract business, but this gives Illinois a black eye, a reputational black eye, then companies are going to want to avoid the state.
Is it a given that Governor Pritzker is going to sign it, or is it possible that he could veto this the way Kathy Hochul did?
We're hopeful that he's going to veto it. We've had conversations with his office. We're meeting with his office here in the next week or so. A lot of companies are weighing in, large companies, global companies, small companies, and when we're optimistic, when the governor looks around to say, hey, why would we make Illinois an outlier? It's only the second state in the nation to have this. You've seen other Democrat governors veto it. He's seen the negative impact, and there are constitutional questions. There's been one Supreme Court ruling called the Mallory case, and it was 5-4. It was split, and actually it was a really weird vote with Democrat and Republican justices, but they said that this probably violates the dormancy clause of the Commerce Clause. That court did not rule on that particular thing, and so that's been remanded back to the courts in Pennsylvania. And so that's another reason we should wait and see what the Supreme Court says before Illinois would take this step to make it more negative for the business community.
Okay, you mentioned some of the local areas here, Madison County, St. Clair County, some of the areas around here in the St. Louis area. Let's say I don't own a business. I live in Illinois, but I don't own a business in Illinois. So, I'm not going to get sued because I'm not a business owner. Why do I still care? What does this mean to me?
Well, this is jobs, right? And economic development. I mean, if you have a company that maybe has a small presence here right now, maybe they do have a sales office or a very small facility, and they decide, we're just not going to risk it anymore. We're going to close that facility down, or we're not going to add jobs in Illinois, or the cost of litigation is significant, and you get some more of these large verdicts. It's going to increase the cost, and businesses are just not going to invest here. We need to create more jobs. We want more good, high-paying jobs, and whether they're manufacturing or quantum, you name it, life sciences. There's a lot of concern from the pharmaceutical companies. We need good jobs in Illinois. We need to create tax revenue by growing our economic base, not telling businesses that Illinois is not a good place to do business.
Okay, so you obviously work in like physical goods manufacturing association here, but I'm thinking, like, for instance, okay, what about the man or the woman who opens up an insurance office, and the insurance company, they're a captive agent for whatever company out there. If they're at risk of getting sued in Illinois, could a state withdraw from, or a company withdraw from the state? Like, for instance, some insurance companies have withdrawn from California because the liability is just too extreme out there because of their public policy. So, could franchise or, independent businesses like insurance agents or things like that, financial services or things like that, could that sort of thing be affected by this as well?
Sure, there's always the possibility, and there's no doubt that insurance costs will go up. And when you look at the opposition, and you hear about tort claims or toxic tort claims, you think manufacturing, but groups that oppose this, the railroads, for example, oppose this, the airlines oppose this, the retailers oppose this, because potentially a retail store that might have some product on its shelves that maybe is the part of a lawsuit. You've got restaurants that are opposed to this, manufacturers are opposed to this. So this is a broad-based coalition of opposition because everybody could ultimately be impacted. The actual case in Pennsylvania dealt with a railroad solely because that railroad went through a state. And you look at Illinois, we've got all 6 Class 1 railroads that are coming through our state. And now you can't necessarily pick up railroad tracks and move them, but this law has an impact on everybody. And you're right, those tangential negative results from this could be, that local man or woman losing their job because the company decides just not to do business, or prices go up so significantly, potentially insurance, that they just can't compete anymore.
All right, Mark, I'm sure you probably have something on the social media website. People want to learn more about this because it's a little bit wonky, but the bottom line, we're talking about making life even more expensive for Illinoisans and the people who want to hire them.
Absolutely. This is just a gift to the trial bar if it gets signed into law. And again, this is forum shopping, venue shopping, and there's no reason that an out-of-state company should be hauled into Illinois to be sued under our laws when nothing's actually occurred in the state of Illinois. But folks can go to ima-net.org and look for more information. But again, talk to legislators and just let them know, or the governor's office, that we need more businesses here, not less.
All right, Mark, thanks for the update on this. Just a bizarre, I don't know what goes through these, state lawmakers' minds. I just don't get it. But thanks for the update, man.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks, Mark.
I guess I should know what goes through their minds. It's called money.
Yeah, apparently.
What goes through it, even if it screws over the small business owners. Because what happens is then you get starved of your supply. You want to buy something from somebody to sell it, at a retail level, and they're like, nope, can't risk it.
Yeah.
You know what?
If you run a multi-state business, even if that multi-states are 2, you're pulling out of Illinois.
Yeah, you're getting. I mean, Illinois is basically uninvestable right now, and it's screwing over the people who live here.
Mike Ferguson in the morning
I've driven all over Washington, D.C. I cannot find the money tree.
on News Talk STL. Live and local.
Well, here's what's on my mind. I think I got the solution to immigration.
News Talk STL. News, analysis, opinion.
Tony Colombo here for my dentist, Dr. Matt Boscia at New Creation Dental Care, the one-stop shop for all your family's dental needs. And Dr. Boscia is always expanding his services, now including the incredible all-on-4 full arch implant procedure, full mouth restoration that can give you back your smile in as little as 1 day. No more suffering with damaged or missing teeth or poor fitting dentures. You can see some amazing smile makeovers, learn more about the all-on-4 procedure, and see everything Dr. Boscia can do right now at newcreationdentalcare.com.
Another RX Watch, brought to you by Onder Law.
There's an evil new twist in the tragic story of baby powder and its link to ovarian cancer. Recently uncovered documents reveal that talc can contain asbestos.
The same asbestos that we know causes mesothelioma.
Right, and ovarian cancer.
In the 1970s, the industry wrote its own rules, allowing Johnson & Johnson to claim that its talc was asbestos-free, as long as it contained less than 1% asbestos.
Of course, Johnson & Johnson helped write those rules. So while we're using hazmat suits to remove the asbestos from our homes, Johnson & Johnson was telling women it's safe for their bodies.
Unbelievable. So if you've used talcum powder for feminine hygiene and contracted ovarian cancer, call Onder Law at 1-800-RX-WATCH.
They've already won several large verdicts against Johnson & Johnson for women just like you.
Call Onder Law at 1-800-RX-WATCH. That's 1-800-RX-WATCH or go to rxwatch.com.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisements.
I'm Dr. TJ, owner of the Institute of Natural Health, co-owner of Optimal Nutraceuticals, and the host of Wellness One. Wellness One is designed to cut through the nonsense and provide you common sense, science-based information regarding health and wellness. On the show, we discuss topics like thyroid health, gut health, hormone optimization, and many others. Our show airs Saturdays at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. and Sundays at 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. right here on Newstalk STL. And you can visit us at inhstl.com. That's inhstl.com.
Tony Colombo here for Gutter Pros, your all-in-one gutter service team that brings years of experience and quality that's affordable right to your doorstep. We discovered Gutter Pros a few years ago when we bought our home and inherited a gutter issue that was on the road to becoming a potentially big problem, but thanks to Gutter Pros was stopped before causing any major damage. They've also repaired the siding on our home because along with gutter repair, gutter installation, and leaf protection, the Gutter Pros are also the best for siding repair and installation. Learn about all the ways Gutter Pros can help your home at gutterpros.com.
This hour of Mike Ferguson in the morning is brought to you by Stifel. Request a portfolio review from your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
I love that you're starting your day off right with Mike Ferguson in the morning. It's your boy Joe Pags. Talk to you tonight. But now let's get back to Mike.
All right, 7:05 here. Tim Fitch, former St. Louis County police chief, former St. Louis County councilman, going to be with us. Cops are under fire literally and figuratively right now. And I want to get his thoughts on this proposal in California that targets police over the rioters and so-called protesters, and certainly over targets police over literally illegal aliens in this country. But there's a much bigger picture. We'll talk about that around 7:05. The big question right now, and I'm putting this out for everybody here, are we on the verge of going into another war in the Middle East? And what are your thoughts on that? What are your feelings on that? Also, the president's authority to activate the Guard is being put to the test in court again today. And who would have thought the public officials are standing up for the Second Amendment in Illinois? 6:51 right now. Let's do a news dump.
Successful dump. Wake up, America. It all worked out. They got all the news.
The morning news dump.
Okay, once we get our coffee loaded up, we'll start the local conversation around 7:20 or so. But you can let me know what you think right now or what you feel right now on social media, or give me a call 314-912-1019. President Trump calling on basically the population of Tehran to evacuate immediately. Now, he's already left the G7 summit in Canada because of what's happening in the Middle East. And this comes obviously after days of missile exchanges between Israel and Iran, with Israel targeting Iran's nuclear program in particular. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth was on primetime with Jesse Waters on Fox. He says the U.S. is posturing itself defensively in the region.
We believe that Iran, as President has said from the beginning, should not have a nuclear weapon. That position hasn't changed. They can give it up peacefully. That position hasn't changed. And as a result, right now, we've got assets in the region and we're going to defend them.
Okay, let's talk about what's actually happening and whether or not you can really call that defensive. Now that doesn't mean, for instance, you can square up to somebody and threaten to punch him in the mouth,
right?
But not punch him in the mouth.
Right. That's true.
And I think that might be more of what's happening at the moment, but you're in a position to throw that punch if you decide you want to throw that punch.
Yeah, these situations are very fluid and complicated. They have a lot of history behind them, so it gets tough to really pull a full-on evaluation of what's going on out of the air. So if you want to talk about it, we've got many ways you can do so.
Absolutely. Okay, let's talk about the riots and things that are happening around the country here. President Trump explaining that ICE must, in his words, expand efforts to detain and deport illegal aliens in America's largest cities, basically targeting blue cities and blue states, including LA, Chicago, and New York. Border czar Tom Homan was on the Ingram Angle, again on Fox, discussing Governor Gavin Newsom's recent comments, saying the governor's plan is going to actually bring more violence into blue cities.
I've said for 2 months, sanctuary cities, how we deal with them, we flood the zone. If we can't arrest a bad guy in the jail, in the safety and security of jail, which is safer for the officer, safer for the alien, certainly safer for the community, then we're going to flood the zone. We're going to send many more officers in the community to find a bad guy.
Okay, and of course, one of the ways that this has been done to quell these riots against ICE was the president sending in the National Guard, and there's been a big legal to-do about that. The federal appeals court hearing on that deployment of National Guard by the president to LA is just hours away. Here's the story.
Late last week, a federal judge ruled that the president illegally deployed the National Guard to help with LA protests and said he must return control of the troops to California's governor. But the Ninth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals stepped in immediately and temporarily blocked that judge's order. The court said it would hold a hearing on the matter on Tuesday. The order applied only to the National Guard troops and not Marines who were also deployed to Los Angeles. Greg Clugston, the White House.
Okay, I don't know if we're going to get a ruling today, but whatever the ruling is, it's going to be a big deal. Okay, we're going to talk to Tim Fitch about this in 10 minutes or so here. California state lawmakers are working on a bill that would criminalize law enforcement's use of face coverings. Yeah, many police, particularly federal law enforcement, are now wearing, the gator masks or other masks because of threats to themselves and their families by left-wing activists who have doxed officers around the country. The No Secret Police Act would make wearing a mask while enforcing the law a misdemeanor. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security calls the bill despicable. And at 7:05, we're going to hear from one of the lawmakers behind this.
Absolutely. We need to talk about, we need to have a discussion about that whole thing, because we've seen cops doxed and everything. We've seen them harassed. But also we don't want fully anonymous law enforcement, right? We still want to be able to identify these people. So how do we split that?
Identify the people, or at least identify the agency.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's where the badge covering aspect of it, I think, might
because
be
they're covering their badge numbers and things like that. So so we'll talk to Tim Fitch about that in just a little bit. This is interesting. Some prosecutors in Illinois say the state's most recent gun ban is unconstitutional. These are the prosecutors talking, and they are calling for it to be struck down by the courts. That call is being led by Madison County's prosecutor. Here's KMOV's Corey Stark.
State's Attorney Tom Hain joining dozens of other Illinois elected state's attorneys in this lawsuit. They claim the ban on so-called assault weapons does not follow the historical tradition of firearm regulations in the United States.
Okay, so Hain and 34 other state's attorneys have filed a brief in opposition to the law in the 7th Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals, and that's where the challenge to the Protect Illinois Communities Act is being heard, which we have spoken with Aaron Dorr a number of times about, and you can get an update on that every Sunday right here on News Talk STL with his show, Shall Not Be Infringed. All right, the Cardinals have a chance to turn things around starting tonight, guys. The Redbirds have lost 7 of their last 8 games, but if you're going to turn it around, you do it with a series against the more than hapless White Sox. The White Sox are relying on the fact that the Pope is a fan of them, hoping for some kind of divine intervention. That's all the hope they have left this season.
That's all they got.
Matthew Liberatore is going to be on the mound for St. Louis. He is 3-6 on the season, so he needs to turn stuff around too. First pitch is at 6:40. That game is on FanDuel.
Nate Lucas here for the Village Bar in the heart of Des Peres. Since 1948, the Village Bar has been the go-to destination for delicious food, cold drinks, and unbeatable atmosphere. Savor their famous wings, burgers, and onion rings, or grab a drink from their fully stocked bar. Catch all the big games and enjoy the company of their friendly staff. Plus, don't miss the 1879 Distillery, a one-of-a-kind experience right next door. The Village Bar offers the best value in town. Find the Village Bar on Facebook and come experience where history meets great times. You'll be glad you did.
Life's too busy for home maintenance hassles. That's where Nicole Whited Home Concierge Services comes in. From coordinating contractors and managing yearly maintenance appointments for your home and vehicles, to handling your mail, packages, and personal errands and shopping while you're home or away. Nicole takes care of the details so you don't have to. Nicole Whited Home Concierge Services. Call 314-766-1996. 314-766-1996. Effortless living starts here.
When it comes to spending your tax dollars and teaching your kids, governments and school districts should be an open book. But in Missouri, that's not always the case. Recently, the Show Me Institute sent out a sunshine law request to school districts across the state, asking for information on whether certain topics are being taught. Specifically, a controversial one called critical race theory was included in the list. Many districts didn't respond. Some wanted to charge large fees to process the documents. Lee's Summit outside Kansas City wanted over $35,000. A rural district, Morgan County, wanted $15,000. The Sunshine Law does allow charging a reasonable fee for sending out information, but there's nothing reasonable about $35,000 or $15,000. These districts should want to be transparent about their curriculums. Taxpayers deserve to know what their kids are being taught. Learn more at showmeinstitute.org. The Show Me Minute has been brought to you by Show Me Institute and Show Me Opportunity.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefontaine, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
Hour from townhall.com. I'm Rich Thomason. As Israel and Iran continue trading blows, President Trump has returned to the White House. Keep an eye on things. He came home a day early from the G7 summit in Canada. Mr. Trump says a ceasefire no longer good enough. He's looking for
an end, a real end, not a ceasefire, an end.
So something that would be permanent.
Yeah, or giving up entirely. That's okay too.
People seem to be heeding Mr. Trump's warning to evacuate Tehran. Traffic out of the city has been gridlocked. Israel, meanwhile, reports liquidating more senior Iranian military officials as Iranian missiles target central Israel. President Trump and British Prime Minister Starmer have announced a breakthrough on trade.
At the G7 summit in Canada, the two leaders said they had signed a trade deal that will slash tariffs on UK auto and aerospace industry imports. The president called it a fair deal for both that will allow for greater access to the British market for U.S. products, including beef and ethanol. Starmer said it was a very good day. Despite the announcement, the two countries still are discussing how to handle steel production and pharmaceuticals. Greg Clugston, Washington.
Parts of West Virginia's northern panhandle are reeling from devastating and deadly flash flooding.
You could have large areas where there's some rain, but then in one concentrated area, it's a torrential downpour, and you're seeing massive quantities of water dumped. It's just Mother Nature at its worst.
Governor Patrick Morrissey, the death toll is 6, with 2 people still unaccounted for. Wheeling, Morgantown, Fairmont, among cities hard hit by the floodwaters, and forecasters say that more heavy rain could be on the way later this week. On Wall Street this morning, stock futures pointing to a lower open. The Dow futures are down more than 200 points. More on these stories at townhall.com.
If you're living with pain, see how Relief Factor can help.
I'm an artist and I'm in my studio. I listen to the radio all day and I'm hearing the ads about Relief Factor. And I've got pain in my neck and it's getting worse. And I'm thinking, well, I'm going to go ahead and order this. 2 weeks later, I've got much better range of motion. If you're experiencing pain at a certain point in life, I would get Relief Factor.
Fight pain naturally with Relief Factor. Go to relieffactor.com and get your 3-week quick start today. Only $19.95.
Why'd I go to the doctor? One day at the firehouse, I was so lightheaded I could barely stand. Even my crew noticed. Getting checked out was the right call. Turns out I have atrial fibrillation, which increases the risk of stroke about 5 times.
Symptoms like irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain, shortness of breath, fatigue, or lightheadedness can come and go. But if it's AFib, the risk of stroke remains. If you have symptoms, contact a doctor.
I'm so glad I did.
Visit NoTimeToWait.com. Sponsored by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
Patchy, dense early morning fog makes way for partly cloudy and hotter conditions today. 91 for the high, heat index around 95. Stray thundershower possible this afternoon and this evening, but it's a dry day for most of us. Increasing clouds tonight down to 74. Some weakening storms and rain will make a run at us Wednesday morning, but we expect them to fade. But a few hours later, potentially severe storms flare up in the afternoon and early evening Wednesday. Let's be ready for that. Tomorrow's high at 86. From the First Alert 4 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Matt Chambers.
This hour of News Talk STL is brought to you by Inciteful, serving investors for over 130 years. Contact your Inciteful financial advisor at Inciteful.com. That's STIFEL.com.
Hungry for the best steak you'll ever have? Head to the heart of Moscow Mills and discover Harry J's, a local landmark and family-owned steakhouse, serving up excellence since '98. From mouth-watering appetizers to decadent desserts, Harry J's has something for everyone. Enjoy our extensive bar selection while soaking in our friendly family atmosphere. Whether dine-in or carry-out, your meal is prepared to perfection. Make the drive to 300 Main Street and treat yourself to a taste of Moscow Mills' finest. Harry J's, more than a steakhouse. We're a tradition.
Hey, folks, Jamie Allman here for Newstedder's Fine Jewelry right there at Doherty Ferry and Big Bend. WowDiamonds.com. It's Wow Diamonds for a reason. These are beautiful lab-grown diamonds. They are gorgeous. They will blind you when you walk in and see them, but that's a good thing. Great engagement sets, wedding sets, all these beautiful God-created gems, sapphires, rubies, you name it, garnets, and also all the gold you need, and the famous bull of a watch. WowDiamonds.com.
Mike Ferguson.
You play ball like a girl.
Gabe Pfeiffer.
I triple dog dare you.
Get up, can't you hear the alarm?
Get up, St. Louis.
So it's time to get out of bed. Pour yourself the greatest cup of Kofifi the world has ever seen. Rise up with one voice. Drain the swamp and take back our country. Today's the day we're going to do it, and it's time to do it right now, believe me.
Mike Ferguson in the morning on News Talk STL.
Get up, this is your cousin.
All right, rioters are attacking police officers around the country. Most notably, we're seeing this in LA right now. And one left-wing state considering a plan to charge police with a crime if they wear a mask while enforcing the law. And we're going to hear from one of the lawmakers behind that here in just a moment.
And of course, the big question of the day, could the U.S. be heading into another Middle Eastern war? What should our role be when it comes to stopping Iran from having nukes? We want to know what you think about it, and we're going to talk about that at 7:20.
It is 7:06 right now. That's Gabe. Got producer Jerome here. I'm Mike. Now joined by Tim Fitch, former St. Louis County Police Chief, as you all know, former St. Louis County Councilman. And I want you to react to something one of these California lawmakers said in just a second, Tim. But what we're talking about is, let's talk about what's gone through culturally and policy-wise over the past couple of years. Defunding the police, then doxing the police officers. That became a thing, particularly during George Floyd stuff and beyond. Literally fighting them during protests, that we're seeing that now. And now one state wants to prosecute them if they cover their faces while enforcing the laws during riots. Tim, I know that you're retired from active law enforcement. How does this strike you, having done your career in public service and law enforcement, and see just wave after wave after wave of attacks on police? It's one thing to question and critique. It's another thing to just outright attack like this.
I think those legislators in California feel pretty emboldened by the politics in California. You would never see something like that in a place like Missouri. So it is what it is. We're used to that. The pendulum swings back and forth all the time. And these particular legislators they're really just pandering to their base, their anti-police base. So it's not a terrible surprise. We saw this during the Ferguson riots, which of course I was involved in much of that whole incident there. But I will tell you that there are workarounds for law enforcement to where, what they did then is took the name tags off of the police shirts and the police outer garments and put in their badge number, their DSN, we call it departmental service number instead. So there's still a way to identify the police officers without giving them, names. But as far as covering faces, by the way, does that go both ways? Or is that just for the police?
Right, precisely. Well, Tim, let me have you react to something. This is State Senator Jesse Arguin from the California Assembly. And here's him defending this law, which, by the way, is expected to pass through the legislature. Tell me your thoughts on this.
And I think many law enforcement officials, legitimate law enforcement officials, would welcome putting in safeguards to ensure transparency and accountability. And I think the concern is a lot that's happening. There are a lot of people who are engaged in these enforcement actions, and we don't know, are they federal? Are they contractors? Are they local law enforcement? And so we're requiring that people not have to wear masks except for some very limited exceptions, and that there be identifying information ensures that we know who is involved here. It's also critical to uphold our state and local laws, including our sanctuary law, SB 54, which says that local law enforcement are not going to be involved in immigration enforcement. So this is, I think, furthering the state's efforts to ensure legitimate law enforcement purposes and to protect Californians.
Okay, so I'll let you, Tim, assess your what you think is his sincerity or lack thereof in what he just said.
Well, clearly, this is really about a win for the protesters. It's certainly not about protecting those officers. Officers are clearly identified what agency they belong to. Usually see it on the back, it'll say ICE, it'll say, Los Angeles Police, whatever. I've never seen any of them in California without some sort of identifying information. So I think that's just a lie on his part, that they can't be identified. And I said, instead of having their names, let them cover their face, because what they want to do is try to identify them so they could dox them. I was doxxed during Ferguson. John Belmar was doxxed. The police chief at the time was doxxed during Ferguson. So, that's what they do. So there's no need to ban having any type of face covering, because we know why they don't want the officer's face covered. Clearly so they can identify them, clearly so they could do things like we saw in Minnesota just over the weekend. They want to be able to identify individuals, and doxing is probably the least amount of harm that they could do to one of these officers. But if they could figure out where these officers live, they can figure out who their families are, where the kids go to school. Do you really think that they'll just ignore that?
Morning, Tim. Gabe here, and I'm wondering how California expects to enforce this, because they would necessarily have to charge a federal law enforcement officer for covering their face.
And there's questions whether federal would be subject to a state law.
Right. Yeah. So how do you expect that to go?
I don't expect it to go. If these are federal officers, they're not going to be. They may try to charge them, but they're going to lose, because, as you know, the Trump administration, the Department of Justice will fight that, if necessary, all the way to the Supreme Court. So it's not going to work. This is a political thing for them. They're trying to score a political win. They can probably control their local law enforcement, which they've already done. And by the way, their local law enforcement, they're not involved in immigration roundups. They're involved in keeping the riots from tearing up the stores and tearing up neighborhoods and destroying people's livelihood. That's what they're involved in. They're not involved in immigration enforcement.
We're visiting.
And the federal government doesn't expect them to be.
We're visiting with Tim Fitch, former St. Louis County Councilman and former chief of the St. Louis County Police Department. Okay, so Tim, let's talk about some of the accusations that these lawmakers are saying. They're saying, listen, we've got secret police. They're pulling up in unmarked cars and wearing masks and grabbing people off the streets and throwing them in the back and driving off, and we don't know who they are or where they're taken. They're just disappearing people out there. And there have been accusations that some law enforcement officers are covering their badges. now as well. Is there a legitimate demand or expectation that at least a badge is visible?
Well, in many uniforms nowadays, they don't have badges on them at all, but they do have identifying information like name or service number. So whether or not their badge is covered, I don't know. I haven't seen that myself. I don't know if that's accurate or not. But if it is, okay, what harm does that do? We still know what agency this officer belongs to. And in most cases, I would assume that there is still a way to identify them through either a number on their chest, a badge number on their chest. I'm not talking about the badge. I'm talking about a number printed on their chest. That's how it was in Ferguson.
What do you make of the current state of morale among law enforcement, law enforcement community at large, and then also, how that's affecting recruiting, given the way current society is viewing them?
I think it depends where you're serving in law enforcement. If you're in California, it's awful. If you're in a place like Florida or Missouri, it's pretty good. I just did an accreditation assessment for the Miami-Dade County Police in Florida. They have 3,200 officers. They had 3 vacancies while I'm there. And I actually interviewed 2 LAPD officers who had transferred from LAPD over to Miami-Dade and asked them why they were there. It was a pay cut for them, but they wanted to get out of the anti-police environment of Southern California.
Tim, we've actually, it wasn't that long ago that even the bad guys were afraid to cross the line of, throwing hands with a police officer or throwing a bottle at him or anything like that. Now we've got a member of Congress who's now facing charges for throwing an elbow at police officers. And it's now, I want to get on TV. I want to get on social media doing this. And so this shows a massive shift, not in just what's acceptable, but also, what tries to make somebody a martyr, at least politically. When this case, you're thinking about Congresswoman LaMonica McIver, I think is how you pronounce her name. She's the New Jersey Congress critter who, decided to get pushy with a bunch of law enforcement outside of the ICE detention center. So we're seeing a massive shift as what's acceptable and what's being promoted. If that momentum continues, what can we expect and how does it affect us all?
Well, as far as momentum, you're always going to have that with a certain number of elected officials where they're going to try to get on TV, try to get their name known, try to get out there. And I'm talking about both sides of the aisle. That happens. I don't think that's ever going to stop. That's going to continue to happen. I don't see a big push for this other than this is everything anti-Donald Trump. If they can get on TV and do anything that looks like they're fighting Donald Trump, that's what they're going to do.
Tim, what's the right way then to have that proper expectation of holding law enforcement accountable? Because we do want to do that. Where's the right way to do that and keep officers safe at the same time? Because, we should have high standards for law enforcement. So what's the right way to do that?
As long as law enforcement is following their department policy, the law, and their training, we should support them 100%. If they deviate from those and they break the law, then they need to be dealt with just like those Congress people throwing elbows. It's the same concept. So we know the protesters will do everything they can to antagonize those officers and try to get them to cross the line. But the vast, vast majority of these officers are always going to do the right thing. And they're out there just doing the job. They're doing what the citizens appointed them to these positions.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of those face-offs and the antagonizing, and clearly that's a tactic. They want the police to, to respond to that, which is one of the reasons I would be a terrible police officer because
Yeah.
I'm like, all right,
okay, let's go.
Invitation accepted, and that's not what you want. I don't know how so many of these officers, have that kind of a patience of people
Discipline.
who hate them as a human being just for trying to enforce the law and protecting other people.
Well, most officers don't let it get to them. They know it's a game that these people are playing, that they're trying to trap them. They're trying to get their job from them. They're trying to get on the evening news. They know that, so they don't fall for it, the vast, vast majority of these officers. But, officers can be pushed. We've seen officers spit on, and we've seen, like I said, bricks thrown at officers, frozen water bottles. There is a line to cross, and they need to arrest those individuals.
Absolutely. All right, Tim Fitch, man, appreciate the perspective. Thanks for providing that, because we get caught up in the, in the policy and then the sensationalism on social media, and a lot of times we forget on both sides, the good side and the bad side, there are real people involved in all this.
No doubt. Real people with families and trying to make a living just like all of us.
All right, Tim, we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
All right, 314-912-1019. Let's go ahead and talk about it. Around 7:20. Are we headed for another war in the Middle East? What is your thought on that? What is your feeling on that? Because I'm seeing a lot of different opinions, even on the right.
Oh, absolutely.
A lot of different takes on this, and nothing is off limits here in the discussion. Let's talk about it right around 7:20 on 101.9 94.1 News Talk STL.
Destination, making cold mind to fight your war. Stop it right now. I have had enough of this. Turn my eyes to you.
On the next Larry Connors USA.
Iran and Israel back at the top of the news, and new developments, they're happening hourly. We'll bring you up to speed.
Larry Connors USA. Now weeknights 6 until 8 on News Talk STL.
Dude, this house is perfect. Crumbs everywhere, sticky counters. I've already texted the colony.
Sweet, I'll bring my 500 cousins. This will be the biggest ant rager of the summer.
Let's party! Wait, oh, what's that sound? Oh, no, it's those trucks with the green wheels. Party's over, man. Party's over.
This is Derek, the owner of All Solutions Pest Control. We'd love to help you out. Give us a call today for a free estimate at 636-486-7888.
If a pest-free home is your goal, call All Solutions Pest Control.
Mike Ferguson here. Retirement should be a time you can relax. No more stress from work. But there's one thing you can't forget about when retiring. That's your money. Do you have enough saved to fund your income for life and keep up with inflation? How will you claim your Social Security benefits? And what about long-term care? The ClearPath Wealth Management Group at Stifel is here to help answer all of these questions. You can hear their latest views on the markets and investing during On the Money, hosted by Stifel financial advisors Bob Stockdale and Eric Robert, every Saturday morning at 9, right here on News Talk STL. They can help you get organized, guide you through critical retirement decisions, and create an investment portfolio designed around your needs. To schedule your free retirement plan consultation, go to clearpathinvesting.com. That's clearpathinvesting.com. Or call 636-695-2650, 636-695-2650. Stifel Nicholas and Company Incorporated, member SIPC and NYSE.
Rhino Shield is engineered to outlast paint by a lot, backed with our 25-year transferable warranty. Paint a house, shield a home. We do brick, block, stucco, asbestos, steel, aluminum, cedar, and more. We are the only coating company selected by Disney, This Old House, and 3 times on HGTV's Curb Appeal, where all 3 episodes concentrate on unpainted brick. If you maintain or own a business with a tired-looking building, you owe it to yourself to look at Rhino Shield and our beautifully durable color schemes. Evaluations are free. We're making buildings pop and be noticed again, from Champaign to the Lake of the Ozarks, exceeding expectations every day with our products, people, and performance. Now is the time to call 877-25-RHINO, 877-25-RHINO, or go to 877-25rhino.com and see how honest and transparent we really are. Tell them, ladies.
Don't paint, don't Rhino, go Rhino Shield. Never paint your house again. Rhino Shield.
News, analysis, opinion.
You know, they're literally taking the Constitution and putting it in a paper shredder.
News Talk STL.
Hi, it's Randy Tobler here. Pour a big cup of coffee and catch my show every Saturday morning from 6 to 9. Right now, it's back to Mike Ferguson in the morning here on News Talk STL.
All right. Basically, here's the question on the table right now. Are we headed into another Middle Eastern war?
Also, we still have VIX for Vets going on. So if you know somebody that has served in your family, friend, somebody you care about, you still have time to submit it and get a shout out from Vic Purcelli on the Vic Purcelli Show and during our regular rotation. So check out the details at newstalkstl.com.
All right, let's go over a few things I think everybody agrees on. Let's start there.
Okay.
And
that's a good place to start.
314-912-1019. So 314-912-1019.
Yeah.
Or you can send us notes, obviously, on social media, send us a voicemail on the app, all that sort of thing. No one in their right mind wants Iran to have nukes. wants to have nuclear weapons. I mean,
No.
can we, doves, hawks, can we all agree on that?
Iran nukes bad.
Yes. we agree on that.
Yes.
Okay. At the same time, should we be directly involved in the military action to stop Iran from getting nukes?
And there's the diversion.
Yes.
Yeah, that I think. Well, although actually, I mean, based on what your findings, what you saw, I guess what poll was that you
Well,
mentioned?
I was talking to somebody about a Daily Wire kind of poll,
Yeah,
which
Daily
is
Wire
not going to be
poll.
a scientific one,
Right.
But basically, it's a survey of active conservatives.
Yeah, yes, and that's I think that the important part for the discussion is that you're basically on the right, people who would normally, I think back in the day, early 2000s, we were the hawkish party.
We were very hawkish
party,
Yeah.
right? So it was like, hey, somebody jumps up, you want to get froggy, here comes the U.S.
That's right.
military to bring some freedom to you.
We
right?
were the give me a reason.
Give me a reason party.
We're
yes.
the strong kid on the block. Give me a reason.
For a while there, yeah, absolutely. But these days we're just like, you know what? Tired of the forever wars is the prevailing notion on the right. And I think that Daily Wire kind of inside poll essentially had it flipped. It had the numbers flipped. Like 90% don't want Iran to have nukes. 80% don't want us to be involved in militarily.
Right,
with them.
directly involved. So which is like, okay, well,
how?
Yeah, okay. So how do you do that?
Yeah.
And President Trump now urging Iran to go to the negotiating table, his words, before it's too late. Here's the story.
As Israel and Iran exchange deadly military airstrikes, the president is pressing the Iranian government to resume talks about its nuclear program.
I'd say Iran is not winning this war, and they should talk, and they should talk immediately before it's too late.
Speaking at the G7 summit in Alberta, Canada, the president declined to answer what it would take for the U.S. to be directly involved in the growing conflict between Israel and Iran. Greg Clugston, Washington.
Okay, so we do have quote unquote assets. I'm trying to use the actual military term.
Yes.
That are there already, but that are moving there as well. So Pete Hegseth, which you've heard in the news dump, is saying that's defensive in nature. I don't know about that. I don't necessarily buy that just making a move is provocative, but it's without a doubt sending a proactive message. So when you look at, for instance, some of the conservative influencers, both the smart ones and the dumb ones that have big followings, and there are some very popular conservative influencers who are really stupid.
Yes.
And they shouldn't have the followers that they do. And I'm not going to name names because there's probably a lot of people who like them on, in our audience.
Yeah.
But intellectually, they're just not there. They're grifters. But there's a division. Basically, now people are questioning, wait a minute, part of the reason that they supported Donald Trump through the first term and into the next campaign, and then eventually his next election, is he didn't start a war.
Right.
He didn't pull us into a war in his first 4 years. In fact, he ended wars. So is that the standard for whether or not we're doing the right thing, is that we don't get directly involved? I am really not wild, because we are still feeling the burn from the George W. Bush debacle that got us into the Middle Eastern war. And I think a lot of people are still really hesitant, saying, wait a minute, we've heard this story before. But it's generally accepted that Iran is pursuing nuclear weapons. I mean, that's really not particularly a controversial statement that they're pursuing.
And they've never stopped.
No.
And that's the other half of it is that, we've always had a, hey, no nukes for Iran position. The international community as a whole has always had the no nukes for Iran position, but Iran has constantly and consistently moved their nuclear program forward, regardless of sanctions, regardless of deals. Those things have not stopped. They've never abated. So then the question is, how far are you willing to go to execute your preferred state of the world?
Because once you cross the line,
it's done.
You're in.
The genie's out of the bottle.
Yeah, you're in.
Yeah.
Corporeal Being on Rumble says, I'm usually a non-interventionist, but in some cases like this, I think we need to ensure the death to America cult needs to be defanged. And that's one big part of the argument.
And for further context, I'm also very non-interventionist. I'm probably the most isolationist person in the room right now. However,
yeah, probably. I'm saying that's probably
and I will know that,
it's a fair assessment.
Yeah. But at the same time, so to Israel's credit, their recent Operation Rising Lion and the further other strikes that have been going on, they've eliminated 14 of 17 of the high-ranking critical people in the military, and the commanders and the intelligence agency of Iran. So on the one hand, I really, really hope we don't get involved and that there would be a peace measure. However, if there was ever a time that would be opportune to strike, now would be the time. And I think the ideal outcome would be just weaken the government enough, because Iranians, forget, they are not a fan of the Iranian regime. So if we can put them in a position to where they could have, and we've already seen protests in the street, so, showing defiance, but if we could put them in a position that would not involve our troops, but also allow for them to, to have their uprising regime change, I think that would be the most optimal outcome.
Yeah, and I think that's a very important distinction that we're talking about in terms of military intervention. We've got our airstrikes, we've got missiles, cruise missiles, we've got all of this power projection capability that doesn't involve troops. And I think when we say we don't want a Middle Eastern war, I think 100% of Republicans basically don't want boots on the ground in Iran.
Sure.
Right. And that's what we would consider a Middle Eastern war. If
now, what about our jets delivering our missiles?
Now, if we're talking about that, I think that's where I think the numbers might get a little further split. If we want to actually parse the do we want to get involved question into a more specific, do we want a 3,000 pound bomb hitting a subterranean nuclear site in Iran? Maybe.
Because because that's the thing. And we touched on this yesterday when we talked to Uri Kaufman, is that we know that they've hidden, basically they're protecting their nuclear assets and stuff like that, basically in a mountain, essentially.
Yes, they carved out a mountain.
They've carved it out there. Israel does not have the capability to hit that.
They don't.
Even if they did, Yuri was telling us, and I did not know this until he said this, they don't have a plane to carry the darn thing.
Nope. Yep.
To get there.
Yeah.
We do.
Yes.
So I say sell Israel whatever they want to buy, when it comes to protecting themselves.
We'd have to sell them a stealth bomber.
But to take that, if that's what it takes, we would have to do it. We're the only ones who can do it. So the question is, should we? Because there's no going back. If regional war breaks out, we're one of them. We're in there.
Right. Well, and I guess part of the understanding there is okay, well, what are our assets in the region that could be hit by Iran? Because obviously we're over here. And our power projection through our naval fleet is one of those big, that's the point of the naval fleet, is a power projection without exposing the homeland. But we also have Middle Eastern bases still. We still have places in range of the Iranian ballistic missile capability. So
that would even cover some of the European bases.
That would cover some European bases too. So we would be exposing them to that aspect of. So are we willing to go that far? Maybe. I mean, because look, everywhere that's in range of an Iranian ballistic missile is in range of an Iranian nuclear missile.
Right.
So that's something to consider as well.
But what's interesting, Jerome, because when you mentioned kind of what you just said a second ago, we were talking a little bit earlier today. That actually surprised me because you are more, and you use the word, you are the isolationist.
Yeah. Non-interventionist.
More so than anybody else in the room. I'm somewhere between you and Gabe probably on that.
I'm pretty hawkish.
Yeah. You're the most hawkish.
Yeah.
I'm hawkovish, and so we got three different kind of views on that. But when you're saying, if we're going to do it, this might be the time, that's significant. And when you look at the split on the social media, especially with the arguments and people, I'm never supporting Trump again, and that kind of stuff. There's a few of those, and others are going, you know what, give it 24, 48 hours. Let's see what actually happens.
Yeah. Because I mean, I grew up when the Iraq and Afghanistan stuff was going on. So
still hot and heavy.
Yeah. And so that might be, maybe why I'm a little bit more of a wussy, if you want to call it that. I'm willing to accept that.
I won't call that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Gabe. But when Donald Trump says that, hey, President Trump says, hey, if our military bases are hit or anything is retaliatory from Iran towards us, we are going to get involved. And we have so many military bases across the world. We do know that with jihadist ideology, they will blend in wherever they can get in. And throughout all the Western nations, we've accepted so many people from Islamic nations and there's 0% chance that none of these people are radical jihadists.
Correct.
So
exactly.
So that is my fear right now. But that being said,
there are sleeper cells here.
Looking at how the way that Israel has been conducting themselves, I'm actually very, very impressed. They've been doing a fantastic job crippling key military things. So maybe
very surgical.
Yes. Very precise scalpel precision. So maybe this is a sign that maybe we just need to budge a little bit and to help back them up a little bit.
Ride this wave and see if the place where we land is a much better situation than we currently have.
Israel acts basically off of one principle, and that is self-defense.
Yes.
We are looking at what are the U.S. interests over there.
Right.
Understand the mindset from Iran and other radical Islamic nations is not rational. They do not think the way that we think.
Not at all.
This is the great Satan and the little Satan, and this is not rational. They don't have a chance to win a direct one-on-one war, and they certainly don't have a chance to win a regional war, but they do have a chance to try to, bring other radical Islamic nations in and create a jihad,
the new
type
caliphate.
of war, caliphate. Yeah. So keep in mind, these are not rational people that we're dealing with. So if you're going to beat them, you just got to beat them, because you're not going to negotiate with them.
Mike Ferguson in the morning.
They had the Muslim ban. There is no white guy ban. So what do we do about that?
On News Talk STL. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
Patchy, dense early morning fog makes way for partly cloudy and hotter conditions today. 91 for the high, heat index around 95. Stray thundershower possible this afternoon and this evening, but this is a dry day for most of us. Increasing clouds tonight down to 74. Some weakening storms and rain will make a run at us Wednesday morning, but we expect them to fade. But a few hours later, potentially severe storms flare up in the afternoon and early evening Wednesday. Let's be ready for that. Tomorrow's high at 86. From the First Alert 4 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Matt Chambers.
I've got a great evening planned for you. We start with dining at the Oak Street Inn Lounge in Cottleville. We enjoy sunset on the rooftop, then down to the speakeasy. Just one visit, you're going to see why I'm always talking about the Oak Street Inn and Lounge. Plus, you might want to plan a staycation, a romantic getaway. Check out oakstreetinandlounge.com for various events this summer. Oak Street Inn and Lounge, Cottleville. Oak Street Inn and Lounge, Cottleville.
Larry Connor's commentary, brought to you by Vincent's Jewelers, offering a wide selection of jewelry, including lab-grown diamonds, affordable earrings, bracelets, necklaces, and rings, up to 75% off their natural counterparts. Visit VincentsJewelers.com. This is Larry Connor's commentary on News Talk STL.
There are still many questions about the murder of a Minnesota state lawmaker and her husband. Suspect is in custody, identified as having a list of 70 targets, many apparently politicians. Obviously, violence is not an answer, and this act should not be politicized. But the left is anxious to find a boogeyman and tie him to conservatives. Leftists and legacy media quick to point out the suspect had voted for Trump. Not so fast to point out that Democrat Minnesota Governor Walz had appointed the guy to serve on a state board 2 different times. A former roommate to the suspect quoted as saying the guy would be offended if people called him a Democrat. Democrat Senator Murphy said we should stop walking on eggshells about MAGA legitimizing political violence. Really? How many recent acts of political violence have involved conservatives? Never mind. We don't have time to do a countdown. Just remember the riots costing billions of dollars of damage in 2020. Democrats rooting for rioters, even bailing them out. You cannot justify that action nor that attitude. Hopefully we learn for the future.
Get more Larry Connors on Larry Connors USA.
Tonight at 6 on News Talk STL.
Attention off-road enthusiasts. Iron Bear Customs has the strongest bumpers on the planet. Plus, brush guards, lift kits, and custom cages for all vehicles. Visit ironbearcustoms.com and mention News Talk STL for 10% off. Iron Bear Customs, built tough for the toughest terrain.
Discover Patriot Powder Coating, your family-owned specialist in Pacific. From small jobs to big projects, we got you covered. Visit our showroom or call 636-551-0377. Mention News Talk STL for 10% off.
Life's legal challenges deserve experienced representation. For over 15 years, Cole Combs Attorney at Law has been serving St. Charles and surrounding counties with comprehensive legal expertise. From tax preparation and estate planning to family law and criminal defense, Cole delivers personalized solutions for your unique situation. You have traffic tickets, need a business formation, real estate matters, one call will handle it all. Cole O. Combs Attorney at Law. Call 636-949-0010 extension 3 today or visit colecombs-law.com.
Tony Colombo here for the Farmers Co-op Old Town Country Store in Old Town St. Peters, where they have a huge selection of products and services for your yard and home, including a full line of lawn and garden products, a full line of products for animal care, and that includes anything from livestock to the family dog or cat. They'll fill any size propane tank for about half the price of a new one, and so much more. Visit them in St. Peters on 2nd Street, right behind the QT at 70 and Mid-Rivers Mall Drive, and check out all their products and services at oldtowncountrystore.com.
All the information I need on the drive to work.
Like Ferguson in the morning. We keep it on throughout the day, whether it's local, national, or something big that's happening overseas.
News, analysis, and opinion.
St. Louis is #1 for conservative talk.
News Talk STL.
Aaron Gore here, host of Shall Not Be Infringed, Sunday nights at 9. But now it's more of Mike Ferguson in the morning on News Talk STL.
I don't have Facebook up, but I've got Rumble up. Interesting, a lot of discussions going on about this. I'm sure we'll come back to this because I want to know what St. Louis thinks about it.
We definitely have to come back to it.
All right, we're seeing a lot of videos on social media. You know, the leftist nutcases getting hit, getting run over by the cars that they're trying to block during their temper tantrums. Sorry. Protests.
Yeah.
Let's chat about that.
Yeah, and guess where Kansas City Chiefs rank in a new comparison of NFL teams at 750. We'll tell you why they are a top 5 franchise in a ranking of what happens off the field.
Go team, maybe not. I'll tell you about that. 750. Here it is, 738 right now. Okay, so if we're not completely fed up already, we're getting close. And I want to reiterate to all the left wingers who did the No Kings, protest stuff this past weekend. You all did it the way that you're supposed to do it. If the rest of the country did it the way the St. Louis protesters did, they would probably make more headway in their causes.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, at the very least, there would be reasonable people who would look at that and say, I wonder what they're up to and what they're talking about. Let me go listen to their spiel.
Right. But more often what's happening around the country, and we've seen this in St. Louis as well. I've been caught behind some of these protests back in, some of the BLM type stuff. More often the decent people in this country just refusing to be told what to do by these left winger who play in traffic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for instance, the latest example, did you see that video out of LA where the young white liberals, jump in front of the car like, no, you can't drive here. We're protesting here. And they get on there and they're kind of like putting their hands on the hood and there's 3 or 4 and the car's like pushing forward and they're like, no, you're not going to do it. And the car just drives.
Yeah.
And it crushes this woman's leg and it's on video.
Rolls right over.
Did you see that video? I saw that.
Yep.
That came in the last couple of days ago. I was tempted to go, hey, here's your feel good video of the day. but that would probably make me a bad person.
Rolling.
Well,
you keep rolling
right over her tibula. Yes. And that's the thing. And of course, now because it's LA, prosecutors are now looking for the driver of the car.
Oh my gosh, really?
Now they're not saying they're going to charge, but they're looking and local media like KTLA and some of those, they're referring to that as a hit and run.
Oh gosh.
And the protesters are holding up this 21-year-old woman, as the latest heroine of the cause.
A martyr for the cause.
I mean, I'm not saying that I watched that video like 10 times in a row.
Only 10.
But I'm not saying that as well here. So I probably shouldn't have laughed or celebrated, but I kind of did.
Yeah.
And it was just a sense of justice, I think, because there are people on the left and frankly, some of the egghead types on the right, and libertarian types, who are going to say, well, let's look at the bigger picture. So what if it's inconvenienced? Maybe they're wrong, but we don't want anybody hurt. And I think the more that these radicals are emboldened, the more of a physical threat they are. And also, I think people are just sick and tired of being told by some 20-something-year-old white guy with either dreadlocks or he just hasn't washed his hair in months, whatever it is, or these frankly privileged white leftists, and that's really who it is, taking on the cause that they're going to speak for everybody else and telling you where you're allowed to drive or not.
Yeah.
So they've taken the whose streets are streets from, the BLM stuff, and they've decided, well, because we feel righteous in our cause, we are going to take ownership, and that rubs people the wrong way, and people are tired of it. Now, in some states, you notice these things don't happen because the bad guys know, oh, the governor literally in Florida says we can run you over.
Yeah.
And we will. And we're not prosecuting somebody who runs you over. Stay out of the street.
Yeah, the only thing that makes that video of the governor of Florida declaring that better is if you add ludicrous underneath it. Move, get out the way.
Yeah.
Right. It's just underneath. Yeah,
that's right.
But seriously, look, if somebody were to, let's say, block you from going to your apartment,
right?
They stood in the doorway of your apartment building, so you are incapable of getting to your home. Do you feel any qualms about hitting them in the solar plexus?
None.
Right?
None.
Well, here, and because
but the same people, there would be people who would say, well, you shouldn't have resorted to that. You should have called the police. You should have negotiated, hear them out.
No.
Maybe did you ask why they were doing that?
Exactly.
I mean, that's the mindset.
Did you try to understand their feelings? No, because the thing is, these people are presuming that because you are a decent individual and you don't want other people to be hurt, that they're going to get their way. Right. They have weaponized your compassion against you. Right. That's the thing that hits me the most about these types of protests, is that you're turning my good nature into a weapon against myself. So right. to take away my own freedom. It's like I'm not going to let you manipulate me into being a rug that you're just going to walk all over.
Right. So there's a difference between looking for somebody to get into a conflict with.
Right.
If I know that
I don't have to go downtown, but I know
right.
there's a thing there, so I'm going to drive down there to drive through the
wouldn't it be a shame if they surrounded my car and I had to or got you don't that's not what I'm talking about.
No, that's not what we're talking about.
I'm talking about you're trying to go to work. You're trying to take your kids to school. You're trying to go to the grocery store. You're trying to live your life.
Yes.
You're trying to go home, and you end up somewhere and they're like, no, you're not allowed to go here because we're upset about something. It has nothing to do with you, but we don't care. This, and to me, justice is you get one warning and I'm driving through no matter what.
Yep.
Now, I don't know. The law may look at that very, very differently, but when it's been pretty clear in most states, you're pounding on the car, you surround the car, you're yelling, screaming.
I'm in danger.
You do what you have to do to protect yourself.
Yes.
Whatever you think that's going to be. In this case in LA, I think what we're seeing, because there were a couple cases, there was one at night and then there was this one that's become famous or infamous, depending on your perspective, where essentially people are saying, I'm not looking for the reason, but I'm not backing down
right
on it whatsoever. And it's interesting to me because when people push through, they scream and wail like, oh my God, how could you possibly do this?
How could you? Oh my gosh.
Oh my goodness. Can you believe
he
this?
Ran her over. Oh my gosh.
Oh my God. Well, I mean, I'll be really honest. I didn't feel an ounce of sympathy.
None.
For that stupid girl who her leg got crushed.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like extensive leg injuries, and I don't care.
Yeah, she was on the ground wailing when the car went through.
Oh, you saw
it bounce. Yeah,
yep.
Because she got hit twice,
right?
And she was in a weird position.
Yeah,
and that led to I imagine multiple compound fractures.
She's already had surgeries on it, and that the thing is that for anybody to say, well, part of the blame is on the driver, they didn't have to do that. No, 100% of the blame is on that idiot chick who decided she was going to tell somebody in a 2,500-pound machine, you're not allowed to go here, and claim that authority over that person's life at that very moment, even in that relatively small way.
Yeah, see, the Germans, I love their language because they like to give names to very specific things.
Yeah.
It's called Schadenfreude. Right? He's like, you have a feel. It's basically the joy that you get from justice, being dealt to somebody who absolutely deserves it.
Right. So what's bad is I got to regulate myself. I don't want to be the kind of person who enjoys people suffering catastrophic injuries.
Right. True.
But I really enjoyed the justice of that moment, and I don't feel bad about what happened to her at all.
Play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Yes.
Mike Ferguson in the morning.
The biggest terror threat in this country is white men.
His remarks are racist.
On News Talk STL.
Jamie Allman here, tossing and turning over retirement worries. You're not alone. 3 out of 4 Americans share your concern about having enough saved. But here's the thing. A comfortable retirement isn't out of reach, even if you're planning for 30 or 40 years ahead. Every day, Jeff Portman from the Gemini Wealth Group helps people avoid the critical mistakes that can derail their retirement. Build your path to financial confidence. Visit GeminiWealthGroup.com or call Jeff directly at 314-888-0123.
Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor. Member FINRA SIPC.
Since 1995, Renewal by Anderson has helped St. Louis homeowners upgrade with windows and doors. Now it's our 30th anniversary sale. You'll get $1,995 off every project. No gimmicks, real savings, and the nation's best warranty. The offer ends June 30th, so you don't want to wait. There are some restrictions. Visit rbastl.com. Renewal by Anderson. Superior products, exceptional service.
Get ready, St. Louis. The Cubs are coming to town June 23rd through the 26th. The Cardinals host baseball's best rivalry at Busch Stadium in a series that always delivers. The Chicago STL rivalry is legendary, and the energy in the ballpark will be electric. It's the perfect way to spend a summer day or night at the ballpark with passionate fans and nonstop action. Don't miss out. Get your tickets today at cardinals.com/tickets.
Hey, this is Sonny Gray, St. Louis Cardinals for the Lou.
Hey parents, looking for something fun and unforgettable to do with the kids? Bring the whole family to a Cardinals game at Busch Stadium. From kid-friendly activities and giveaways to awesome promotions like Kids Run the Bases. Your little ones will have a blast, and so will you. Check out Family Sundays, presented by Smithfield, where select tickets include a free jumbo hot dog and soda. There's nothing like sharing the magic of Cardinals baseball together. Make your memories this summer at Busch Stadium. Tickets are available at cardinals.com.
From home improvement to replacement, do-it-yourself electrical projects can be shocking. That's where Grasser Electric can help. They've been lighting up St. Louis for years. From ceiling fans and dimmer switches to repair or replacing your electric. No job is too big or too small for your home or business. Grasser Electric will even install emergency backup generators. So call Grasser Electric today before the sparks start to fly. 636-441-5200 or go to grasserelectric.com.
Hey, Chris Arp from the Tim Jones and Chris Arp Show. Make sure that you're listening to our show this afternoon from 4 to 6. Now back to the Mike Ferguson in the Morning Show.
All right, I am not an NFL fan anymore. We know that, right? But let's shout out the team in the state here in the region. The Chiefs are in the league's top 5 in a new ranking.
Okay, all right, let's go, Chiefs.
There you go.
Okay, no, what's the stat? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
We're gonna get to that.
Yes.
But before that, News Talk STL has an app. I don't know if you know this, but
if you're brand new to the show, you may not know that.
It's kind of a big deal. It has many leather-bound books, but you can go directly to the App Store, download that on your phone, and then you get all kinds of neat features like the shareability of the app. I really think that's really cool that you can go right to the app and share the app itself just to let everybody know that you're listening and what show you're listening to right at that time.
Exactly. All right. So there are stats for everything in sports these days, especially football.
Right.
I mean, I don't. Do you guys do fantasy? I don't do fantasy football. Do you do it?
I did briefly for a
I've
time
never
there.
done
It was interesting for a moment. The nerd part of my brain liked the numbers, but then I got bored.
Yeah, I've never done it. But I don't know if your fantasy league is going to factor this in, though. It's a ranking of the teams in the NFL.
Okay.
According to a new report, and
All
this
right.
is from Play USA.
Okay.
Which, kind of, I think it's like online betting and assessment and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
According to a new report, the Kansas City Chiefs are the NFL's fourth most criminal team.
Fourth most criminal?
Fourth most criminal team. So when you look back from 2015 to 2024, they looked at arrests and convictions of all the players on all the different teams in the NFL.
Oh, jeez. Oh my gosh. And the Chiefs are the fourth.
Matter of fact, but when you compare 2015 to 2019, those numbers, and then the Chiefs numbers from 2020 to 2024, they have improved their numbers so much. 133% increase in criminal activity of the Kansas City Chiefs players.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they are number 4 between 2015 and 2024. 51 criminal situations involving the players. But that's only the fourth in the league. That puts them number 4.
Are crime statistics included in the data sheets they get during recruitment?
Oh, I know. Yeah, really. It's like,
oh yeah, he runs a really good 440, and also he's got several misdemeanors for gun possession.
Now that 133% increase, that puts them the second highest increase.
Oh, geez.
So number 4 overall, but they're gaining ground.
All right.
On this.
And we want to keep them in the statewide. Would Missouri's crime statistics improve just by letting the team move?
That's right. Because for a little while the joke was the NFL stood for National Felons League.
Right.
But
I don't think that's changed.
Here's okay, so the most common crimes that Kansas City Chiefs players are arrested for, and it was a tie.
Okay.
Between DUI, drug offenses, and domestic violence.
Wow. Okay.
So all 3 of those were tied.
Well, I mean, we did reduce the possibility of the drug offenses by legalizing.
Correct. And besides, if the Chiefs are going to smoke pot, they're less likely to get into other trouble because they're just going to veg out and then eat Doritos.
Here's hoping.
Right. But the most criminally violent team in the NFL, believe it or not, the Minnesota Vikings.
The Vikings?
Yes.
Is there just nothing else to do in Minnesota? Is that why?
Well, apparently nothing other than drive drunk.
Okay.
Because the most common crime that their players are arrested for is DUI.
Okay.
61 crimes.
Wow. Now I did hear that. Yeah, they're the only thing to do in Minnesota is to drink.
Right. That and shiver because it's cold.
Yeah.
The second most arrested team, the Denver Broncos, 56 arrest. DUI is their number 1 offense.
Alcohol affects you more at high altitude.
Oh, okay.
And maybe they don't know that when they go. So just FYI.
Yeah. Number 3, the Cincinnati Bengals, 54 total crimes. They had a tie of the most common assault and DUI.
Oh, geez. Assault.
So basically, I'm wondering if there's a lot of hands being thrown when booze is consumed.
Well, we're talking about Cincinnati. Probably a lot of a-holes. I'm kidding. I love you guys.
And then the Chiefs, number 4, fourth most criminal. Let's see here.
And the Chiefs kind of split theirs with the DUI.
They're the only one that has 3.
The drugs
crimes,
and domestic
violence.
Jeez.
No other teams that I saw on this had domestic violence as one of their top ones.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Gosh.
So this is some ugly stuff here. And Play USA used, a variety of data sources to do this. So the top 10, the rest of the top 10 teams, Jacksonville Jaguars, their most common crime, drugs. Number 6, Cleveland Browns, their most common tie between drugs and DUI. And then number 7 was Tennessee Titans. Tie for number 8, Seattle Seahawks and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then number 10, Indianapolis Colts, 7 through 10, all of them the most common crime, DUI.
Man,
that these are actual players getting arrested for and or some kind of plea or criminal or something like that.
These NFL numbers are rivaling the U.S. House.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Because, by the way, their criminal numbers are higher than all the NFL put together. But yeah. So why?
That's a great question. Is why?
Why are they getting more criminal? Like, look, I understand these are very high testosterone individuals, right?
With a lot of money,
a lot of
notoriety,
and they're young and stupid, right? Because they're new college graduates getting recruited. Okay, here, new college. Remember how dumb you were at 22?
Yeah.
Okay, so 22-year-old you is now a celebrity who makes millions of dollars to play a game you love and work out and do man stuff.
And a game in particular where you make your living by hitting other people.
Right. Yes, by being the most aggressive, bad MFer on the field. That's like that's your bread and butter. And then with all your millions, you go party.
Right.
Because you work hard, you play hard. So you got all this testosterone madness, I like to call it, with you and your boys out, and you're getting drunk and stuff happens. Okay, I get it. But come on.
Well, it's one thing to get in a little bit of trouble.
Sure.
I mean, it's one thing the cops are called because you know what, you're getting rowdy, you gotta
Right.
go.
Yeah, you guys
gotta go home. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
Right. Let me call you Uber. Nobody
That's
has
one thing,
any excuses now to DUI.
Yeah, or yes, exactly. Or even somebody got mouthy and you guys got into a fight somewhere. Now I would rather just extract myself from the situation, but you know what, if you're a tough young professional athlete, they're not telling me, are you kidding me? I take on, whoever in the NFL, because I don't know the names anymore.
Look, here's my advice to all the young dummies who are going to get recruited into the NFL and suddenly become millionaires with a lot of extra time on their hands in the offseason. Hire somebody to be your wingman, to be your designated driver, and keep you out of trouble.
Oh man.
Tony Colombo here for Gutter Pros, your all-in-one gutter service team that brings years of experience and quality that's affordable right to your doorstep. We discovered Gutter Pros a few years ago when we bought our home and inherited a gutter issue that was on the road to becoming a potentially big problem, but thanks to Gutter Pros was stopped before causing any major damage. They've also repaired the siding on our home because along with gutter repair, gutter installation, and leaf protection, the Gutter Pros are also the best for siding repair and installation. Learn about all the ways Gutter Pros can help your home at gutterpros.com.
Attention reptile lovers, ready to discover your next scaly friend? Welcome to the Show Me Reptile Shop, your ultimate destination for fascinating reptiles and exotic pets. With 3 convenient locations in Troy, St. Peters, and Springfield. We have an amazing selection of snakes, lizards, turtles, and more. Whether you're a seasoned herpetologist or a curious beginner, we've got the perfect pet waiting for you. Show Me Reptile Shop. Visit us in Troy, St. Peters, or Springfield, and online at showmereptileshow.com.
Hey folks, Jamie Allman here. Exciting things are happening at the Hideout in High Ridge. Famous for the Sunset Patio, 4 big screen TVs, live music and events, and of course, the wings. The Hideout now has a brand new menu featuring handcrafted burgers and new items like their signature sunset dip and Dave's Chili. And now a second location, the Hideout at Sugar Creek Golf Course in High Ridge, featuring great event space. You can stop by for lunch or dinner. The new 2025 Hideout and the new Hideout at Sugar Creek Golf Course. We'll see you there.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefontaine, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at NewsTalkSTL.com.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Rich Thomason. Unrelenting in its attacks on Iran, Israel is now hitting targets in Tehran. A deafening explosion was aired live when an Israeli bomb slammed into the headquarters of Iran's state-run broadcaster, sending a terrified TV propagandist diving for cover. President Trump is urging people to evacuate the Iranian capital as he and members of his team keep a close eye on the situation.
I'm Greg Clugston at the White House, where the president arrived early this morning after taking an overnight flight from the G7 summit in Canada. He and his national security advisors are monitoring the escalating conflict in the Mideast. The president said he wants something more permanent than a ceasefire and that he hasn't reached out to the Iranians for peace talks. He wrote online that if they want to talk, they know how to reach me.
And more than 200 Iranians have been killed so far. At least 24 deaths have been reported in Israel. Before departing the G7 summit, the president and British Prime Minister Starmer announced a U.S.-UK trade deal had been signed.
The aerospace industry will see tariffs removed completely. There'll be a 10% levy on the car industry. One wrinkle is, while UK government officials point out that Britain is the only country to be exempt from the global tariff of 50% on steel and aluminium, a 25% tariff does remain. Negotiations to remove this will continue.
The BBC's Chris Mason. Retail sales fell last month for the second consecutive month. Sales dropped 0.9% in May, following a smaller decline in April. Among other things, Americans purchased fewer cars last month. On Wall Street, ahead of this morning's opening bell, stock futures in the red. The Dow futures are down 221 points. NASDAQ futures off 113. More on these stories at townhall.com.
If you're living with pain, see how Relief Factor can help.
My back got injured very bad. I was off work for about a year. I heard about Relief Factor from my wife. I took it every day, 3 times a day for 3 weeks. Look at her and I said, the pain is gone. And she said, I'm glad it helped. I said, no, you don't understand. It's gone.
Fight pain naturally with Relief Factor. Go to relieffactor.com and get your 3-week quick start today. Only $19.95.
Healthcare is complicated. It doesn't have to be. If you don't love how your health insurance works, maybe it's time to leave traditional health insurance behind. Take charge of your healthcare with Christian Healthcare Ministries. CHM offers you flexibility. Enroll anytime, choose your own provider, and select the program that fits your needs and budget. CHM is the original faith-based way of taking care of your medical bill costs. Learn more at chministries.org.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
Patchy, dense early morning fog makes way for partly cloudy and hotter conditions today. 91 for the high, heat index around 95. Stray thundershower possible this afternoon and this evening, but it's a dry day for most of us. Increasing clouds tonight down to 74. Some weakening storms and rain will make a run at us Wednesday morning, but we expect them to fade. But a few hours later, potentially severe storms flare up in the afternoon and early evening Wednesday. Let's be ready for that. Tomorrow's high at 86. From the First Alert 4 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Matt Chambers.
This hour of News Talk STL brought to you by Chris Cooper and Serenity Wealth Management. Discover little-known strategies that could be the difference between choosing the care you deserve or having someone else decide it for you. Get a free copy of Chris's book at serenityltc.com.
Need help navigating Medicare? The Westhoff Agency is here to assist.
Hi, I'm Debbie Westhoff with Westhoff Agency. We have helped hundreds of people just like you navigate Medicare options.
Our team of experts makes the process simple and stress-free.
Let me, Debbie Westhoff, be your personal Medicare guide, walking you through each choice to find the coverage that truly fits.
Visit westhoffagency.com for more information. That's westhoffagency.com.
Westhoff Agency is your trusted Medicare partner.
Springtime often means storms. Don't let a fallen tree ruin your day. Call Hanson's Tree. Look them up at hansonstree.com. Hanson's, your expert insured tree care specialist in the St. Louis region and well beyond. In addition to taking care of all the messes, they can take care of beautiful things as well. Organic mulch, tree trimming, grinding, and land clearing, green waste recycling. Let the expert arborist at Hanson's take care of all the tree care for your home or business. 24/7 at hansonstree.com, hansonstree.com.
Mike Ferguson.
Are you pretending to be crazy?
Gabe Pfeiffer.
There's something serious I have to tell you about the future.
Get up, St. Louis.
We let's knock it off.
Mike Ferguson in the morning on News Talk STL.
Get up, this is your cousin.
All right, man, as always, particularly the Rumble chat box. A lot of interesting discussions going on. And one, what is this about a fake Donald Trump's ear? What the hell?
So welcome to our, I guess, friend Strongest here.
So that's a handle I've not seen before. So,
welcome.
Welcome.
I think you're definitely wrong, but we have one of those individuals who is claiming that ears that are grazed by bullets do not bleed, and that President Trump's ear is in too perfect of a shape to have actually been injured because, plastic surgery does not exist. And also ears.
So is this a conspiracy theory that the shooting didn't happen?
That's what I'm trying to figure out here, because I have some questions.
Yeah.
I mean, you know me, I'm a tinfoil guy, but that's one. I mean, I could see it maybe being an inside job per se, but no, at the same time, I've had cauliflower ear. I was a combatant sportant. I've injured my ear many times doing stupid stuff. And so I just want to put on record here that no, there was some trauma caused by that. And if you watch the Joe Rogan podcast episode where he had Donald Trump on, Joe Rogan himself inspected the ear and said, yes, there's definitely damage there. So
all right,
there you go.
Okay, all right. So, but make your case. The number chat box.
Welcome. Make your case. He's being very respectful. So
you know, you don't have to agree with me or any of us to be part of the conversation. We're a little different than that. You can disagree and make your case. All right, 8:06 right now. The big question right now: are we on the verge of going into another war in the Middle East? Also, court case. A lot of people forgot about this, even though it's only a week old. The president's authority to activate the guard is being put to the test in court. That's going to have an update today. And there are elected officials in Illinois standing up for the Second Amendment. Let's go ahead and do a news dump here.
Successful dump. Wake up, America. It all worked out. They got all the news.
The morning news dump.
I also want to point out, speaking of the Rumble chat box, one of the most consistent kind of News Talk STL super fans is Jay Monty. And
yes,
he's going to be here in St. Louis this week. I'm looking forward. We're going to meet him.
Yep.
He emailed me and he said, is it okay if I stop by the station and meet you guys? I'm like, we'll be mad at you if you don't
seriously
stop by the station. So he's going to be by here. We're going to get him. We got to get him in and get some pictures and everything.
Absolutely.
All right. To go to what's happening in the Middle East here. President Trump urging people in Tehran to evacuate immediately. And when I first saw that last night, I thought, oh, he's telling Americans to get out. No, he's telling Tehrannians to get out.
He's like, hey, something's coming down. That's basically the warning that I'm drawing from it.
I know something you don't.
Right.
Everybody leave the city. And I don't know how big Tehran is, but that would essentially be akin to, hey, everybody in San Antonio, get out.
Yeah, pretty much.
You can't do that. And of course, he left the G7 summit in Canada early because of what's happening between Israel and Iran, with Israel targeting Iran's nuclear program. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth was on primetime with Jesse Waters on Fox. He says our moves right now are being postured defensively.
We believe that Iran, as President has said from the beginning, should not have a nuclear weapon. That position hasn't changed. They can give it up peacefully. That position hasn't changed. And as a result, right now, we've got assets in the region and we're going to defend them.
Okay, so the only thing I don't completely buy is that our moves are 100% defensive. Now, I think we are protecting our assets, but I also think this is maybe not provocative, but I think proactive and sending a message and setting the tone.
Yeah, we've seen this a lot of times when things get a little heated over in the Middle East. We're going to send an aircraft carrier, and mainly the purpose of our Navy is to protect the sea lanes for trade.
Right.
That's honestly what the point is. And there are some major trade thoroughfares in the area, so an aircraft carrier kind of overwatching the region isn't unusual. But I think our moves do have at least 10, 15, 20% of an aggressive posture as opposed to purely defensive like we've seen in the past.
To some degree, you're the guy who's got the big pump after working out at the gym and you walk around, with gorilla fists.
And your arms can't quite
puffed up.
Your arms can't quite touch your body.
And you're walking around, swagger a little bit. We're doing a little bit of that.
A little bit of that.
Part of that is to set the tone. Sometimes you do that to say, you really want to F with us?
Right, exactly. Give them a side eye.
All right. Or my little buddy here.
Yeah, my little buddy here.
Yeah. All right.
Small, but he packs a big punch.
That's right. This is interesting here. California state lawmakers working on a bill that would criminalize law enforcement's use of face coverings. Yeah, many police, particularly federal law enforcement, as you're seeing right now, are wearing masks because of threats to themselves and their families by left-wing activists who have doxed officers around the country. What they're calling the No Secret Police Act would make wearing a mask while enforcing the law a misdemeanor. U.S. Department of Homeland Security calls the bill despicable, but it is expected to pass the California legislature really because it is anti-police.
Yeah.
Because it is pro-illegal alien, because it is pro-violent left-wing protest. It's basically trying to tilt the advantage in the conflict away from law enforcement by making it not worth police's time and risk to their families to enforce the law.
Yeah. Now, and in our discussions with Tim Fitch,
Yes.
he said that those were basically unenforceable against federal law. Now they're constantly trying to defang their own police, and we've seen that many times. But all of the federal law enforcement people that are ICE guys, they're fine. They're not. This isn't gonna. No. Cop is going to deliver this misdemeanor to an ICE agent in California.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah.
You know. All right. Speaking of what's happening in California, the federal appeals court hearing on President Trump's deployment of National Guard troops to LA, that is just hours away.
Late last week, a federal judge ruled that the president illegally deployed the National Guard to help with LA protests and said he must return control of the troops to California's governor. But the Ninth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals stepped in immediately and temporarily blocked that judge's order. The court said it would hold a hearing on the matter on Tuesday. The order applied only to the National Guard troops and not Marines who were also deployed to Los Angeles. Greg Clugston, the White House.
Okay, so assuming there's no changes to the schedule later on today, the hearing is expected to happen. That doesn't mean we're going to get a ruling, but it's possible that we could get a decision today. Obviously, by this time tomorrow, we're going to know what the status of that is. And what's at question here is not whether or not the National Guard can be used to quell riots. It's whether or not the president can go just skip the governor.
Right.
Traditionally, the governor activates that and does that. And in this case, President Trump just said, yeah, Newsom, you ain't doing it. So I'm going to go take the National Guard, federalize them, and activate them in your state, whether you approve or not.
And to be fair, there is a caveat. I'm trying to remember exactly what it's called, like Title 10 or something like that, that does allow the president to basically to basically work around the governor to employ the National Guard of that state to defend federal assets in the state. So depending on what the Guard's mission is, that could be the deciding factor of what this ruling plays out.
All right. Some prosecutors in Illinois say the state's most recent gun ban is unconstitutional. That is a heartening statement for me to read, that there are prosecuting attorneys in Illinois who are standing up for the Second Amendment. They are calling for that law to be struck down by the courts. That call is being led by Madison County's prosecutor. Here's KMOV's Corey Stark to explain.
State's Attorney Tom Hain joining dozens of other Illinois elected state's attorneys in this lawsuit. They claim the ban on so-called assault weapons does not follow the historical tradition of firearm regulations in the United States.
Okay, in all, we're talking about 35 state's attorneys have joined to file a brief in opposition to the law. That is currently in the 7th Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals, where the challenge to the Protect Illinois Communities Act is being heard. And this is one of the most recent, because, of course, Illinois in the last couple of years has passed, anti-Second Amendment, unconstitutional gun law after gun law after gun law. All right, between the after-school needs that happen every year and the devastation of the tornado that happened just over a month ago, the food bank is asking for extra help right now. So donations of like non-perishable foods those are helpful. Don't get me wrong. So if you want to have a food drive at work or at your church or something, absolutely helpful. But money goes farther. So the St. Louis Area Food Bank says each $50 donation feeds a family for 2 weeks. In our region, feeds an entire family for 2 weeks.
That's amazing.
Generally, they count that as 4 people.
Now, everybody listening to that who's hearing it for the first time is like, okay, how the heck?
Yeah, I can't even do that at all.
Right.
Okay, so the way that this works is that they negotiate basically deals with food distributors, and you're talking about surplus food or the food that these companies donate as part of their overall business plan. And so the food bank not typically, but sometimes just has to pay for the shipping, and they get the stuff for free. So they get it at pennies on the dollar. So, if I go to the store and I buy $10 worth of food, I can have so much food. If the food bank buys $10 worth of food, they get so much more.
It's like $100 worth of food.
Yeah, it might as well. Yeah, exactly. So that's why the money goes farther. You can get more information at stlfoodbank.org. Cardinals hoping to turn things around tonight. Redbirds have lost 7 of their last 8 games. They start a series with the White Sox in Chicago this evening. That first pitch is going to be at 6:40. That game is going to be on FanDuel.
There's no more, and all at once depart my destination, making cold my heart to fight your war. Stop it right now. I have had
Mike Ferguson in the morning.
Someone in that control room is out of control.
On News Talk STL.
Blow us all away. You wanna do that now? Get up! Get up!
Hey, Jamie Allman here for my good friend Harry Parker and the ultimate seafood dining experience at Gulf Shores, GulfShoresRestaurantAndGrill.com. Gulf Shores offering a unique dining experience with a vast, mouth-watering menu of all of your favorite delicious dishes, something for everyone's taste or palate. 3 convenient locations, Edwardville, Creve Coeur, and St. Peter's. Dine in, carry out. They've got a food truck, too. Friendly staff. Looking forward to seeing you, making your dining experience one you will remember. Gulf Shores Restaurantandgrill.com.
Military history buffs and collectors, attention. Looking for authentic military collectibles? Look no further than Alamo Military Collectibles, your one-stop shop for genuine military artifacts, firearms to uniforms, medals to memorabilia, pistols, rifles, bayonets, insignia, patches, helmets, field gear, and more. Both American and foreign pieces. We offer cash or consignment for your items. Alamo Military Collectibles. Visit us online at alamomilitary.com or call 314-638-6505 today.
I'm Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey. Human trafficking is occurring right here in Missouri. You can help combat it by learning the signs of human trafficking and reporting suspicious activity to law enforcement. Victims may appear malnourished, show signs of mental or physical abuse, or avoid social interaction. If you're a victim or know someone who needs help, contact the National Human Trafficking Hotline at 1-888-373-7888 or text the word HELP to be free. Together, we can fight human trafficking in Missouri.
Brought to you by the Missouri Attorney General's Office.
Are the days of a personal doctor gone? Not at Body of Health Direct Primary Care. I'm Dr. Randy Tobler to share how our design is putting the care back into healthcare. Plain and simple, our members, not insurance companies, get our exclusive focus. That means same or next day appointments, responsive answers to your concerns, and a no-spin, big tool chest approach. It's about time you get serious time devoted to your medical needs. To learn about healthcare the way it ought to be, schedule a discovery call today at bodyofhealth.com. That's bodyofhealth.com.
This app is absolutely fantastic.
Yes, I listen on my phone.
If you have a phone, you have a radio.
It is awesome.
Download the all-new News Talk STL app and listen anytime, anywhere.
In a world of ugly faces, should I be allowed to be so hot?
Hi, this is Jefferson County Councilman Billy Crow with a reminder to check out our new show, Jeffco Patriot Radio. This and every Sunday at high noon. Now, back to the Mike Ferguson in the Morning Show.
All right. Did our state government just get played and played bad by the billionaires? So here's the deal. They get the money, but it's possible that we're not even going to get the property tax relief that's supposed to be part of the deal.
And the conversation is going to continue about the brewing possibility of war breaking out in the Middle East. So stick with us as in the next segment as we talk about that.
Yeah, and it's not even just war breaks out over there. Are we going to be involved in it?
Yeah,
Are we
absolutely.
about to get entangled in another Middle Eastern war?
It's a big deal.
And if so, should we?
Right.
A lot of debate on that. All right, 8:19 right now. Hundreds of millions of dollars in money from taxpayers, just not enough to get a commitment from the Chiefs to actually stay in Missouri.
Why
So
do
all
this?
of that whole thing at the special session to guarantee them, and we're talking $700-800 million from taxpayers. And then when you throw in the Royals, you're looking at $1.5 billion. Now, I think it's going to be more than that because basically lawmakers said, of the Royal Stadium, we'll cover 50%. And for the Chiefs, I think it's a little more in the dollar amount. But even that, the Chiefs have responded by going, okay.
Right. That's nice.
Mm-hmm.
We'll take it into consideration.
Right. Maybe, but we may still leave anyway. So I asked the Show Me Institute's Patrick Tuohy about this. And basically what I asked him is what should this say to taxpayers and frankly, lawmakers about committing these hundreds of millions of dollars in taxpayers' money to these teams who were demanding that they get the money or they were wanting to leave. Here's what Patrick had to say.
No one should be surprised to learn that even after getting everything they wanted from the legislature and the governor, the Chiefs are still not willing to commit to stay in Missouri. These teams make decisions based solely on what is in their best interests. They're not operating out of love of the state or their fans or romantic notions of pride or anything sentimental. As I said in my testimony before the House, the teams are likely to take the offer from Missouri and use it to get a better offer from Kansas or to play Clay and Jackson County taxpayers against each other. This is what happens every time. The lesson for everyone is that the teams and their owners do not love us, and we shouldn't let our love of them cloud our thinking. Elected leaders must act in the best interest of taxpayers, but that's not what happened here. Our leaders let the teams dictate the terms of negotiation. The teams even set a deadline for the legislature to act. And in return, taxpayers are getting precious little, if anything. The governor and the legislature let themselves get hustled.
Patrick's right.
Yeah, it is more embarrassing than the possibility of losing a team that you could be played this badly by that team.
See, the interesting thing is there's an article on Outkick.com that stirred up a lot of this discussion and probably has some lawmakers feeling embarrassed if this is circulating in their communities. I mean, if you click at Outkick.com, you can find Kansas City Chiefs secure massive handout from Missouri to renovate Arrowhead. But when you click on it, the actual headline shows up, Kansas City Chiefs complaining after getting massive handout from Missouri taxpayers to renovate Arrowhead. Now, were they proactively complaining, saying, I can't believe you guys didn't give you? Not necessarily, but they made it very clear, this isn't good enough for us to turn around and say, yes, I will stay with you.
Right.
Yes, I'm not going to break up with you. Okay, well, that's enough for me to listen and think about staying with you. That's essentially what it is. I mean, for instance, it's, oh, you want to take me to the Metro Gala? You're going to take me out to a nice dinner? Oh, that's beautiful, but you're driving that.
Yeah. I got you the 2.5 carat ring. Right.
Yeah.
Right. And you're still on the fence about whether to stay with me.
Right.
That's the problem. That's where we're at. And I mean, I made the joke earlier that, is like the stop simping and know your worth, Missouri. but it kind of feels that way. We're getting played here. The terms have been entirely dictated by this private business owned by billionaires, right? Come on, man. What?
I mean, they basically said, and the governor agreed with them, they basically said, you will call a special session to give us taxpayer money. You will do it by this time. Here's your deadline. Patrick is right about that.
Yeah. And
essentially, you've got this small state legislature that allowed themselves to be bullied and pushed around by this billionaire ownership group or groups for both of them.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, I hope they feel stupid. And I'm saying this with some of my friends who voted for this. Doesn't mean we're not friends unless they choose to be offended by my saying that, which has happened before in my life, believe me. But the bottom line comes down to is, yes, you got played.
Mm-hmm.
You got bullied. Patrick's right. They don't give a crap about the state or their local community. They're a business and their job is to be as profitable as possible.
Right. Yeah. And they're doing so on the backs of the taxpayers who had already spoken on this issue.
Yeah.
That's
for the Royals, at least. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but the thing is, I would, if I'm a politician, I'm taking that as an indicator of public sentiment about these types of deals. That, you know what, the constituents are not on board with compromising their tax revenue, the money that they provide the government to go to these billionaire clubs, full of millionaire players. You know what? Yes, you can go across the border. We'll still root for you, but I'm not crying over the fact that you moved your stadium.
And here's the even worse part. Not even just I'm frustrated because our lawmakers allowed themselves to get rolled on this.
Mm-hmm.
That corporate welfare package cleared with a margin of 1 vote.
Yeah.
And that vote was Rick Bratton,
Mm-hmm.
formerly of the Freedom Caucus. And he says, well, I think it was going to pass anyway. I wanted to get the property tax relief, so I got the best deal I could. Now,
that's not really what happened,
got
though.
A deal.
Yeah.
Was it the best deal? I don't know about that.
And it wasn't going to pass.
Right.
Anyway.
And had he not voted with it, then it's very possible this bill would not have passed. And the corporate welfare would not be happening, or maybe they'd still be in special session and arguing over something else. I don't know. But the counties in his district get some guaranteed property tax relief. Dozens of other counties have the option to get some property tax relief if they vote on it. And then some counties in Missouri get nothing. They weren't included in the deal. And that was what essentially, I guess, secured the vote on that for him. And, another Freedom Caucus guy, Brad Hudson, voted for it as well. But now we're getting word from one of the most widely recognized experts on the Missouri Constitution that part of the deal may not even withstand a legal challenge if somebody files it. Dave Rowland, who's been on the show a number of times, he was asked about this in an article that KY3 in Springfield published, and he told them, he said, listen, this may violate the Missouri Constitution. So I caught up with Dave to get a clarification on that and to get him to give me an answer to that question. And here's what Dave had to say when he's assessing what could happen if this law is challenged.
The bill that the Missouri legislature recently passed creates different levels of taxation that are permitted in Missouri counties. And it kind of groups counties into one of these two groups, but there's no clear rhyme or reason as to why one set of counties is in one group and why the other set of counties is in the other. This runs afoul of a provision of the Missouri Constitution that prohibits what are called local or special laws. And the basic principle embodied in that provision is that if a policy is a good idea, it should apply for everybody. It shouldn't selectively apply to one part of the state, but not the other. It shouldn't apply to one group of people, but not the other. So a challenge needs to be broad. And I think that the challenge would be well-founded, but there is a question about how the courts would treat it. If the courts decide that they just think that the division of the counties is roughly rational, then they may well uphold this provision.
And there are some cases where the courts of Missouri basically say, I don't want to get involved in politics, you know, and there's sometimes that's good and other times that's what they're there for. But here's the thing, going back to the corporate welfare part of this, is that the way that this bill was passed into law, the way that it was written, if that tax part that Dave Rowland was just talking about, if that is struck down, it is what's called severed. So the corporate welfare for the billionaires is guaranteed no matter what. The property tax relief for some Missourians, not guaranteed if it's challenged in court.
So essentially, if it got challenged and the challenge upholds, then basically that was all for nothing.
Yes.
Wow.
That is the short answer, is that could be all for nothing. And the lawmakers would have been hustled completely. And they will basically have to go back to their districts and explain why they're giving away thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars per resident in the state. Because we're talking $1.5 billion for a state of 6 million people. You know, now the one thing everybody generally did agree on was the disaster relief, which was, a different bill. But in this case, yes, it could be all for nothing. Now, Dave's right. There may not be a challenge filed. I don't know. There may not be somebody who steps up to do that. But and if it's filed, maybe the courts are going to say, we're not doing this. We're not getting involved and not make a ruling. But Dave is one of the well-recognized experts, not just on the U.S. Constitution, but on the Missouri Constitution specifically. And you look at his work at the Freedom Center of Missouri and demonstrates that he knows what he's talking about. And he says, this is pretty clear. This absolutely could be violating part of the Missouri Constitution. So Missouri lawmakers should have stood up and stood stronger. And this needs to be a lesson for them in subsequent sessions to protect not just our money, but what happens when they come for our rights again.
Yeah, it would be nice if our lawmakers actually listen to us instead of the special interest for once. For once.
Ferguson in the morning.
The strong protecting the weak and the good beating evil.
On NewsTalk STL. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
Patchy, dense early morning fog makes way for partly cloudy and hotter conditions today. 91 for the high, heat index around 95. Stray thundershower possible this afternoon and this evening, but this is a dry day for most of us. Increasing clouds tonight down to 74. Some weakening storms and rain will make a run at us Wednesday morning, but we expect them to fade. But a few hours later, potentially severe storms flare up in the afternoon and early evening Wednesday. Let's be ready for that. Tomorrow's high at 86. From the First Alert 4 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Matt Chambers.
Fox News commentary.
The Democrat Party is framing their anti-ICE fight as compassionate, but really it's about cheap labor. I'm Tommy Lahren. More next.
I'm alpine skier Michaela Schifrin. I've won the most World Cup ski races in history. But what does success mean to me? Success means discipline. It's teamwork. It's the drive and passion inside of us. And it's why Inciteful is one of the fastest growing global wealth management firms in the country. If you're looking for success, surround yourself with the people who will get you there. If you're an advisor or investor, choose Inciteful, where success meets success.
Inciteful Nicholas and Company Incorporated. Member SIPC and NYSE.
Past performance is no indication of future results. Investing involves risk. Consult a financial advisor before making any investment decisions.
Mayor Bass isn't even trying to mask it anymore. She demands the ICE raids stop due to their impact on the economy. Not only is California home to the largest population of illegal immigrants, LA has at least 800,000. Over 1 million LA residents live with someone who's here illegally. According to a 2020 study by USC Dornsife, about 11% of LA's workforce is undocumented. So when Mayor Karen Bass cries about ending the raids, what she means is, don't take away my cheap labor. These companies and industries that rely on illegals want us to feel sorry for them if their cheap illegal alien labor is taken away, but sorry, no. Do not expect the American people to play Russian roulette with our lives for the sake of unvetted and undocumented cheap illegal alien laborers, all so you can cut your payroll costs. I'm Tommy Lahren, and you can watch my show, Tommy Lahren is Fearless, at Outkick.com.
Connor Roofing. You can count on Connor. Connor Roofing is now a two-time winner of the National Best of the Best Award for customer satisfaction for roofing, storm damage restoration, siding, gutters, both residential and commercial. Please visit ConnorRoofing.com for an estimate. And remember, you can count on Connor.
Life's too busy for home maintenance hassles. That's where Nicole Whited Home Concierge Services comes in. From coordinating contractors and managing yearly maintenance appointments for your home and vehicles, to handling your mail, packages, and personal errands and shopping while you're home or away. Nicole takes care of the details so you don't have to. Nicole Whited Home Concierge Services. Call 314-766-1996. 314-766-1996. Effortless living starts here.
Yo, this is Vic. All during the month of June, Vic for Vets is proudly honoring our veterans. Every weekday at 11:05, you'll hear about that day's honoree and their incredible service to our country.
Hi, it's Ken. You want to nominate a veteran? Send their name, service information, and story to me, Ken, at NewsTalkSTL.com.
Brought to you by Best Buy Flooring, Patriot Heating and Cooling, and DG Firearms.
Together, let's celebrate the heroes in our community, Vic for Vets, where honor meets gratitude.
This is Mark Harder with RE/MAX Results, the #1 RE/MAX franchise in the region. As a licensed real estate broker with RE/MAX Results for over 20 years, I've seen the ups and downs of many real estate markets, including the one we're in right now. With the spring market in full swing, now is the time to leap into the buying or selling of your home. Someday is not a day. Today is the day to make your move. Call me at 314-852-8933 or email me at markhardersells@gmail.com.
News, analysis, opinion.
Federal agents are being attacked in the city of Los Angeles.
We have to get more people involved. We're not going to let our country be torn apart.
101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
Hey, this is Vince Colonnese. I'll talk to you tonight at 8. But now back to the Mike Ferguson in the Morning Show on News Talk STL.
Okay, so the question's really simple right now. Are we headed into another war in the Middle East? Are we going to be dragged into another war in the Middle East?
Yeah, I think that's the thoughts in everybody's mind. By the way, you can share your thoughts with us on that by going to our News Talk STL social media, which we have a Facebook account. We have X, of course. And then, of course, our streaming platforms, Rumble, YouTube, Facebook. I believe we're somewhere else as well.
YouTube.
Right?
Oh, did you say YouTube?
Yeah, YouTube.
YouTube,
And then,
Rumble, Facebook, X.
And then we also have an amazing podcast platform. So Apple Podcast, Spotify, Omni Studio, and our official NewsTalkSTL.com website.
And it's all News Talk STL, just one word, if you want to
Yes.
connect there with us. All right, 8:35 right now. So President Trump basically warning everybody in Tehran, get out.
Yeah.
Okay. So how people are reacting, that varies, here in the U.S., particularly on the right, even within the MAGA movement. But nobody in their right mind wants Iran to have nukes.
No.
Nobody wants that. So at the same time, I think there's a lot of us, and increasingly on the right, we're not as hawkish as we used to be on the right. Should we directly be involved in military action to stop Iran from getting nuclear weapons? That's the key question.
Well, because again, from what I'm seeing online, at least, and this is not just a few small accounts, these are massive, big pro-Trump people are coming out saying we voted for President Trump to not go to war. No new wars was one of the promises that was made. And on the one hand, I agree with that sentiment, but on the other hand, I think that with what's going on now, there is potential that this might be the only opportune time that we were going to have to actually make a meaningful difference.
So President Trump urging Iran to return to the negotiating table, in his words, before it's too late. Here's the story on that.
As Israel and Iran exchange deadly military airstrikes, the president is pressing the Iranian government to resume talks about its nuclear program.
I'd say Iran is not winning this war, and they should talk, and they should talk immediately before it's too late.
Speaking at the G7 summit in Alberta, Canada, the president declined to answer what it would take for the U.S. to be directly involved in the growing conflict between Israel and Iran. Greg Clugston, Washington.
Okay, so I don't want to be involved in the war. But are we going to be involved? Because they're not consulting me, just so you know. They're not asking.
Come on, Mike.
That.
Keep us out of it.
I'm not getting a call from Pete Hegseth going, hey, Mike, what do you think? I'm not getting that. But not wanting to be in there is one thing. Do we, as one of the last few remaining superpowers, do we have a duty to be involved? I don't know that we have a duty, but to your point, is this also something that we would need to do as an opportunity? Because the reality is that I think a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that all the different nations are going to negotiate and they're going to have the same mindset. Well, we all have our own interest, and that has to do with trade and economy and money and things like that. Islamic nations think differently than Western nations.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. And I know some people may be offended by hearing that, but it's simply the truth. When you look at Western nations, you're looking at Europe, you're looking at obviously the US and North America and South America. We think in very different terms, particularly the US, when you have such a variety of people in the country. We think in terms of national security. We think in terms of economy and trade and business and all that kind of stuff. And sometimes we get it wrong and sometimes we get it right. You've also got other nations that are more homogenous who think in terms of their sort of cultural preservation. That would be like Japan, somebody like that. That's one of the driving forces that they have there. Then you've got the Middle Eastern and some of the Northern African Islamic nations. They think in terms of jihad. Not all of them. Although I would argue there's an element of it in all of them because that's what their religion dictates. They are theocracies.
Yes.
And they are run by one central religion, and dissent at best, disagreement is tolerated in some areas at best, but only to a certain amount. They don't think in terms like we think. Judeo-Christian ethos, nations that are founded on that. Generally, that's the West, whether or not they're secular or not. It's a Judeo-Christian ethos philosophy. Celebrates life and the defense of life. Hardcore Islamic nations celebrate death, martyrdom.
Yes.
And a lot of times we don't understand that. And we're like, well, go to the negotiating table, like Donald Trump said. Go to the negotiating table and we can work out, because nobody wants, a big war where a bunch of people die. Well, don't necessarily believe that, because not all cultures want to avoid war. Not all of them fear war. Some of them, even knowing that they would lose a physical war, they value how many lives they can take.
Yes, and that is, I think, the big pickle of the situation, not to, for lack of a better term, is on the one hand, not every Muslim majority or Arabic nation is into the idea, because it's a very specific, I can't remember if it's the Shias or the Sunnis, but one of those two sects, it is quite literally a fundamental part of your theology, your identity, is that if called upon for jihad, that is your duty. That is the ultimate height of what you can achieve.
Right.
And Iran is one of those nations. So, because I've also been seeing a lot of discussion about, well, if we can strike these military targets, why can't we get the leader of Iran? Well, that would create, in their eyes, a martyr for their cause. And then all of the groups that they have been proxying and funding to become more radicalized and to enact literal terror on people, that would just justify them as amplifying that. Right. Whereas, and I saw a great post about this. So without the Iron Dome, Iran's missile strikes would have killed countless,
who knows how many,
numerous Israeli civilians, right? So that is what happens, would have happened without Iran or Israel having the Iron Dome. On the opposite end, Iran does not have an Iron Dome, and the only, for the most part, the majority of people that have been killed in these strikes were strategic military targets. So this is where the discussion of whether or not it's America first, because that's where a lot of people are starting to switch to, is, and I don't like the idea of getting into the Middle East again, especially I don't want any of our troops. We have so much going on domestically. I would much rather our taxes and our emphasis being on fixing the problems we have here. But on the other hand, 14 of the 17 top leaders, including intelligence and the generals of the Iranian army, have been eliminated. So they are going to be in a struggle to try to get people to fill those positions and get back on track for what they were trying to do. And I know for a fact that they are furious with the fact that Operation Rising Lion was so effective. So I'm just worried that peace talks are going to be off the table now.
Yeah, and can you believe them if they come to a deal? If there is a deal, do you actually? I mean, it basically comes down to what's the enforcement on this. Yeah, it's the surgical precision that Israel uses militarily is just almost mind-boggling.
Yeah.
But that comes down to the question for the United States. And I was looking at a lot of the arguments in the debates just on I wasn't even looking at what the left was saying. I'm just looking at people arguing, on the right. And of course, there's a bunch of, click-seeking influencers on the right who, they've got their bold statements because they want clicks and engagement, and they may or may not have any basis for solid opinion. But the question comes down to is, what are we willing to do? What do you think the United States should do, if anything? Because there's two questions. Should Iran have nukes? Of course not. Should we be involved militarily and commit to military action directly from us? Listen, I think we should sell Israel whatever they want to buy. I don't care what it is. Sell it to them.
Yeah, I think that would actually be the best course of action. Now, the thing that is of concern to me as well right now is the fact that President Trump has issued a statement saying if Iran targets any of our military bases or personnel or equipment that we have all over the world, that would be enough for him to say, we're going to go and we're going to lead charge. But now we're also sending the USS Nimitz to that area. And it just seems kind of contradictory to say, well, we want to issue that statement to protect our military assets. By the way, we're sending more of them. I just don't know if that's the right play right now.
I have learned over the years, and this is my thought to everybody else, you can agree, disagree, 314-912-1019, is take a deep breath. Let's see what happens in 24 hours. Let's see where we're at. It's not going to stop the debates. I do think it's interesting that Donald Trump has become far more hawkish in the last 24 to 36 hours.
Agreed.
Far more hawkish. So I do think there is a potential that the United States becomes directly involved in military strikes against Iran. I think that is possible. From a military perspective, Iran would be crazy to not do everything they could to avoid that. But they might be crazy.
Yeah,
it might be just be a crazy, a crazy regime that even their own people hate. So, instability could be coming. And then the question for us is, do we get involved? Should we get involved? I'd love to know what you think. Let me know.
Mike Ferguson in the morning.
Let me just say this with all due respect. You really don't know what you're talking about right now.
On News Talk STL.
St. Charles County, get ready. Smoke 70 is now open in St. Peters. Grand opening specials that'll make you say, holy smoke. 420 pre-rolls for just $4.20. Eighths for only $20. Full ounces at an incredible $70. Mention News Talk STL and get one free pre-roll. 92 Spencer Road, St. Peters. Call 636-248-2792. Smoke 70. Once you see our prices, it's enough to say, holy smoke.
We've been here 30 years, 30 Christmases in this house, and we have the traditions that most families have.
That's Terry talking about her experience with Rhino Shield ceramic coating.
We did Rhino Shield 14 years ago, and the house still looks the same as the first day. Rhino Shield really worked with me to help me get just the right, nice, soft yellow, and it's 14 years later, and it's the same color.
The main reason Terry called Rhino Shield is because it's backed by its 25-year transferable warranty.
It just sounded wonderful that we could have the house coated with Rhino Shield and not have to worry about it again for 25 years.
Take it from Terry. Give Rhino Shield a call now for a free evaluation. 877-25-RHINO. 877-25-RHINO. Or visit 877-25rhino.com.
There have been neighbors that have come by and said, did you just have your house painted? Because they wanted to know who the contractor was. And I said, no, it's actually Rhino Shield.
877-25rhino.com.
Public schools, like public libraries, should be free and open to all. Open enrollment allows parents to choose the school that's the best fit for their children. Maybe another school has a wider curriculum, is bigger or smaller. Maybe a kid is being bullied and would be more comfortable at another school. 75% of parents favor open enrollment. Open enrollment programs now exist in 43 states, and Missouri should join them. Our next-door neighbor, Kansas, has one of the strongest open enrollment policies in the nation. Kansas parents are trusted with choices and options, while Missouri parents must move out of their home to change public schools. And it's a trend. Nationwide, the percentage of students going to their chosen public school has steadily increased. Assigning kids to schools based on their zip code is the old way. Open enrollment is a better way. Learn more at showmeinstitute.org. The Show Me Minute has been brought to you by Show Me Institute and Show Me Opportunity.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
$18 million more for Sam Page for animal shelter upgrades? David Stokes of the Show Me Institute to discuss at 4:20.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps. Weekdays at 4 on News Talk STL.
Hi, it's Vic Porcelli.
And Ken.
Hi, Ken.
Hey, Vic.
Ken and I are on every Monday through Friday here on News Talk STL. Right now, you're listening to Mike Ferguson in the morning on 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL. Whoosh, my morning, people.
All right. We have had kind of a reprieve of all the violent protests and stuff. I mean, there's some happening in California still, but now you've got lawmakers in California who basically are saying, well, what's the way we can support the rioters, support the left-wing extremists, support the illegal aliens, and go after, frankly, the good people.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the best way I could do that. So here's what's being proposed. It's a law, and they're calling it the No Secret Police Act, that would require every law enforcement agent. There's a couple exceptions. The SWAT team would be an exception in the bill. But for the most part, law enforcement would not be allowed to use anything that covers their face. So no gator masks or bandanas or anything like that, so that people can see their faces. It would also require that their badges be shown as well, and that it would be a crime for law enforcement to cover their face while they're enforcing the law. And this is targeting federal law enforcement in addition to local and state law enforcement.
So I'm all in favor of police accountability and law enforcement accountability the same way I'm in favor of them having all the resources necessary to perform their duties. You can't be covering up your badge. But I also don't think that, given the modern landscape, what the world we live in today, there are legitimate reasons that a law enforcement officer would need to have some sort of face covering, because the people that they're going after, especially ICE agents, it's not like it's just some random person that is hanging out of Home Depot at 5 a.m. trying to get a gig. Some of these people are actual legitimate cartel members, and we know how cartel deals with their opposition.
Well, and the leftist useful idiots, which is a lot of the people who are involved in being basically doing what the agitators are telling him to do. They're using social media. They're using the technology. They're trying to find, okay, this officer's name is this, this is John Doe. Oh, let's find out a way, somehow cross-reference whatever. And they're finding out, oh, John Doe lives at 123 Main Street.
Yeah.
John Doe's wife works at ABC Company. Interesting. John Doe's kids go to local elementary school and local middle school. Let's put that up, target them.
Yep.
And now we've got situations where we literally just had political figures assassinated in Minnesota. And so law enforcement, particularly federal law enforcement, Kristi Noem's talked about this, and I think Tulsi Gabbard even said something about it. But Kristi Noem in particular said, these people are putting their lives on the line because they are being targeted for enforcing the laws. These rioters, they're not just targeting and opposing the policies. That's what you do with a peaceful protest or elections or petition drive. They want to starve the policies of enforcement. They want to starve the border of enforcement, because you can have all the policies you want, but if you scare immigrations and custom enforcement or customs and a CPB, if you are to starve them of officers because they're worried about their wife being murdered, then essentially you have a guerrilla / sort of terrorist warfare to try to get rid of those who are in charge of protecting the rest of us. Understand, this isn't just about those officers. This is about us too.
Yeah. And so when this was first breaking, even I made sure to assemble as many videos as I could, because right now the left is being very disingenuous and claiming it's all just a fabrication of the right to try, we're actually peaceful. But no, they were firebombing police cars. They were throwing big chunks of concrete that they were busting off of like poles in different areas of the city. So the idea that for anybody that thinks that this might be ridiculous, the idea that somebody that is enforcing the laws that we voted for, the majority of America in a proper democracy, we won because we voted, we went to the polls, that the people that are now enforcing the rules that we all voted for are being targeted and being hindered with violence and destruction. That is a real thing that's going on right now. And so there needs to be some element for, again, protection for those that protect us. And I think that is what the left is very mad about. It's fine for me to cover my face, not fine for thee.
That was the point that was brought up by Tim Fitch, former St. Louis County police chief, who was on with us a little bit earlier. He said, yeah, they're not making rules for the terrorists that have to show their faces, not that they would do it. But for instance, here's State Senator Jesse Arguin, who's one of the sponsors of this act that targets police and basically is demanding, under penalty of law, that they expose themselves and their families. Here's what he had to say. Here's how they sugarcoat this.
And I think many law enforcement officials, legitimate law enforcement officials, would welcome, putting in safeguards to ensure transparency and accountability. And I think the concern is a lot that's happening. There are a lot of people who are engaged in these enforcement actions, and we don't know, are they federal? Are they contractors? Are they local law enforcement? And so we're requiring that people not have to wear masks except for some very limited exceptions, and that there be identifying information ensures that we know who is involved here. It's also critical to uphold our state and local laws, including our sanctuary law, SB 54, which says that local law enforcement are not going to be involved in immigration enforcement. So this is, I think, furthering the state's efforts to ensure legitimate law enforcement purposes and to protect Californians.
You know what would negate all of that concern about, well, we don't know whether this is, federal or contractor or whatever the case is. You know what would negate all of that? If your state cooperated in the effort to get rid of illegal aliens and protect us from illegal aliens, If you were part of the solution, you wouldn't be worried about it. What this means, a-hole, is that you are simply in opposition to efforts to protect our border and our people from the illegal alien invasion. That's what this is all about. You can wear a nice suit and say those words and sugarcoat it that way and use things like accountability and all that sort of thing, but you're not after accountability. You want individual law enforcement officers, particularly at the federal level, to have their lives in danger. That's what you want, is you want them and their families to be at risk of retaliation from lawless, from violent rioters who have been engaging, which by any definition qualifies for terrorism.
Absolutely. And that, I think that's the point that we're seeing right now, is that there are so many what are called accelerationists that have key positions within our own government in a lot of different states. And that is what ultimately I think is going to make the next few years very difficult to get things done that we all voted for, President Trump to enact. But that's also part of why I feel, though, that we did not see that level of nuttiness when we had the protests here. Now, again, these people are still very, in my opinion, deceived, and they don't understand fully what they are actually advocating. But we did not see crazy fires break out. We did not see the attack on law enforcement. Not this time.
We've seen it, but not this time.
But hopefully not in the future either. But I think we the people have sent a very strong message saying we support law and order. We support your rights, though, as well, to be peaceful. So as long as you are peaceful, there will be law and order, and then you don't have to deal with any of this.
Look at the last 30 seconds we've got here. You think about it, like, for instance, with the No King stuff, we braced for the worst. We braced to look like Los Angeles.
Yes.
And then what happened with the leftists around here is they simply exercised their First Amendment rights. I can't speak for all of conservative media, but from what I saw, we said, good on you.
Yeah.
We disagree with what you had to say, but you did it the right way. There is no issue. I mean, I still don't like the marching through the streets and taking those, but bottom line is you didn't do what they did over there. And therefore you were actually listened to here.
Yes.
We still disagree, but you were taken seriously and treated with respect, and you got your voice heard, whereas the others aren't getting their voice heard at all. And it's their own fault.
You and I might have something in common: back pain. I can tell you where I go for help: Esquire Sports Medicine. The